Chapter 253. Now there were only 4 cars left in front of Qin Guang. At the very front was Ah Yuan's Volkswagen. He had performed well today, maintaining first place. Even though his lead over the cars behind him was minuscule, he had protected the local racers' pride. In second place was the expensive McLaren P1, which was a complex of black technology with superior power. Up until now, this car was still the most technologically advanced car in the competition. Apart from that, its driver was also very smart. Unlike Ah Yuan, who had unwillingly fallen to 4th place in the previous round, this guy had deliberately controlled his ranking to 3rd place in the previous round. This was to obtain a position in the second row this round, which would allow him to suppress the matte GTR. Apart from these two, there was a Subaru Leopard WRXD and a BMW M4 respectively. Just as everyone was looking forward to how the matte GTR would slaughter the 2 cars in front, a sudden change occurred, causing an uproar. The Subaru and BMW actually slowed down their acceleration, and instead adjusted their parking spots, driving side by side. Were they brazenly teaming up to suppress the invincible GTR? This kind of behavior was enough to disqualify or even be banned in a regular competition. But in a gambling competition, there were no written rules about this. This was an underground drag race where both parties wore protective suits and wielded fancy rapiers. Furthermore, they had to compete on a rectangular platform where both parties had to fight back and forth with each other while wearing protective suits and wielding fancy rapiers. Although these two's behavior was shameful, if they couldn't even deal with this kind of situation, how could they become the underground kings worshipped by the unruly racers? 4 years ago, on the same track facing the same situation, Diesel had chosen to explode on the accelerator, turning his Ford GT, which had been completely transformed into a heavy cannon, into a meteorite, crashing into the 2 rascals in front of him. He had used his American-style violent philosophy to maximize the power of the muscle car, sweeping away the 2 overconfident stumbling blocks on his road to becoming the king of cars. So what would the matte GTR do today? F***CK. B***T. Qin Guang was pushed back by the 2 bastards and tried to pull the inside lane. The 2 cars decisively cut to the inside lane and pulled towards the outside lane. In the end, the 2 bastards did not even care about their pride. They would rather lose straight-line speed and pull to the right side. In this kind of 2-lane race, it was already very troublesome to have a car in front of them blocking them from overtaking them. With 2 cars blocking their way, it was simply a trap. Qin Guang changed directions several times, but he was blocked by the 2 grandsons. Qin Guang was infuriated. "Did you 2 bitches take my money?" He had not guessed wrongly. The 2 of them had indeed received money. The driver who had locked his car yesterday promised the 2 of them that if they could work together to push GTR out of the top 4, he would give them 2 million each. Apart from that, the 2 of them also knew that they would definitely be defeated by this invincible GTR if they were to compete based on pure strength. Instead of that, they might as well use this dishonest method to force him out of the top 4. This way they would be able to keep their place in the top 4 and get a share of the prize money. They would also be able to get cash from the driver. Why not? Perhaps some people would think that the battle to protect the car had not even begun. Qin Guang wanted to break through the heavy encirclement of the king of cars and successfully win for 7 days in a row. However, to the driver who had a temper and character, "If you make me unhappy, I don't lack money. I can also protect my car so that you won't even be able to enter the battle to protect the car. Bullying a big shot who can't run a corner race. I'll throw money at you." In a regular race, taking money and breaking the rules would, of course, be condemned by everyone and banned from the race. But I'm sorry, this is the racing heaven of the underground world. We only have one rule: the winner takes all. Even if the racers in the BMW M4 and Subaru Leopard WRXD were beaten to death by the kings of cars who had come all the way here to protect the car, it would not change the fact that the GTR had lost its chance to become the king of cars. Then, faced with such a situation, what could the driver of the matte GTR do? His GTR was not as violent as the Ford GT. Could not be like Diesel, who could forcefully smash through the obstacles on both sides. It was not just the ordinary audience that thought this way. Lu Fei was not any better. Even the kings of cars who had gathered together could not think of how the matte GTR could break through this situation. Under the lens of the helicopter, the 3 cars were almost squeezed together. Although the absolute speed of the 3 cars did not slow down much, Ah Yuan's Volkswagen and the other McLaren P1, which were running at the very front, still took advantage of the situation and accepted the gifts from the Subaru and BMW. If Qin Guang could not break through the blockade of the two thieves in front, the gap between him and the carefree Volkswagen and McLaren would only continue to widen. I'm very familiar with this scene, Silver Sparrow citing. A deep and hoarse voice suddenly sounded from behind the kings of cars. Everyone turned to look, only to see a sturdy bald man with a smile on his face slowly walking over. Ferrant moved the fastest. He turned around and walked in the direction of the bald man with a smile. Uncle Diesel, you're finally here. Diesel extended his fist and hammered Ferrant's chest. Why, your father is not coming? Ferrant nodded. He's not coming. From now on, I will inherit the name of Sonic Shack and continue to be famous throughout the world. Diesel only patted his head. Kid, the king of cars doesn't recognize who your father is. What you want, you have to rely on yourself to fight for it. Ferrant's face turned red, a hint of unwillingness flashing in his eyes. However, he did not dare to argue with Diesel and could only obediently stand behind Diesel. The others also greeted Dominic Diesel, who had arrived late, with unconcealable fear in their eyes. Diesel also nodded to the crowd and immediately stood in the middle of the crowd, continuing to look up at the huge screen. On the screen, the matte GTR that had created a legend a few days ago was still being suppressed. He seemed to be at his wit's end. Being suppressed like this, even Brother Racing God can't do anything, right? Ajia said worriedly. Lu Fei did not reply. Although she felt the same way, another thought kept popping up in her mind. In this world, absolutely no one could block his path forward. What would you do? Just as Lu Fei asked silently in her heart, Qin Guang suddenly gave her an answer. This answer came so suddenly without any warning. Qin Guang's jitter flew. Chapter 254. Why was he flying? What was he trying to do? Was he courting death? He was flying out of the track. A huge question mark floated in everyone's mind. Qin Guang's car was flying in the air. Time seemed to have stopped at that moment and everyone's mind went blank. Slowing down time by 10 times, one could see Lu Fei's mouth open wider and wider, and her pupils gradually constricted. The 6 great car kings and the Sonic Sun, who had been watching the huge screen calmly, also opened their mouths at the same time. In the distant crowd there was a sudden cry of shock. This mountain track was built along the mountain. On one side was a mountain and on the other was a cliff. Flying out of the track meant falling off the cliff. If you were lucky you might survive, but the probability of dying was much higher than surviving. Mr. X's short and hurried cry of shock came from the loudspeaker. Oh my God! Time was still slowing down. Under the night sky, under the lights, Qin Guang's matte GTR was flying in the air. The wheels were still spinning crazily, and the thick exhaust pipe was spewing exhaust crazily, as though it was pulling out a rainbow in the air. In the car, Qin Guang had a cold smile on his face. You think you can stop me with 2 cars? You're looking down on me, aren't you? I've been waiting for this chance, this V-turn. The mountain track rose and fell along the mountain, generally following the course of going up and then down the mountain. But there were also some steep slopes in the middle of the track. Among them, this V-turn was the most thrilling. On one side there was a sharp turn and at the same time, there was a sharp rise and fall of the slope like a twisted arch bridge. Even if you slowed down to drive past here, there would be a very obvious sense of weightlessness. And the peak of the steep slope happened to be the sharpest corner of the V-turn. Normally, when driving past here you had to control the speed at least 70 kilometers per hour to pass safely. Otherwise, a moment of carelessness would cause the car to fly up and crash into the mountain wall at the sharp V-turn. A car flying in the air could not be controlled no matter how good the driver was. But Qin Guang did not slow down. Instead, just before entering the curve he pulled the car hard into the inner lane, the tires almost pressing against the edge of the drainage ditch. Then he turned around diagonally to the other side and along the slope of the V-turn he suddenly sped up. The slope was too steep. It was at least 30 degrees. Qin Guang rushed out from the tangent of the slope at 160 kilometers per hour. The car was far from the ground and it crossed the guardrail diagonally. The whole car was floating in midair. You want to stop me? I'll fly over now. Let's see how you're going to stop them. The GTR flew farther and higher in the air, and when it finally reached the apex the GTR was already flying. Finally, someone reacted and saw through his intentions. They were even more astonished. What a complete lunatic. Aren't you afraid of death? Are you really not afraid of death? How do you know that you can rush out fast enough? How do you know that this slope is enough for you to fly diagonally to the other side of the bend? Could it be that when you made this decision you already calculated the result? If Qin Guang knew the doubts in these people's hearts, he would only chuckle and tell them the truth. Forget it. What the f*ck? I'm not a human computer. I just feel like I can fly over, so I just do it. It was all based on intuition. The racing god's intuition is never wrong, okay? I've already done similar things in the racing god's training ground, okay? Of course, Qin Guang knew how much shock his crazy action would cause to the others, but he didn't care at all. He just desperately leaned his body back and relied on the change in his own weight to try to adjust the angle of the car in midair. Although the other side of the bend was the downhill section he needed, the angle was not as steep as the 30 degrees when he took off. He tried to reduce the landing angle as much as possible. It was close to the track itself so that the car would receive the least amount of damage when it landed, and it would obtain the greatest speed. Bang! At this moment, there was a loud noise coming from the car window, and there was suddenly a pool of blood. Faster, thief! What the hell? I think I bumped into something. Qin Guang was so scared that he peed his pants. He turned his head and vaguely saw a white shadow about the size of 2 palms flash diagonally behind him, and it went straight down the cliff. Did I just kill a bird? Wait. Pigeons? Qin Guang didn't have the time to care about the unlucky pigeon. He quickly turned around and placed the tip of his foot on the gas pedal, focusing all his attention on the road ahead. He did not notice that when the unlucky pigeon was knocked into the sky, the heavenly holy grail that was fixed in the cup holder emitted a faint blood-red light, but it disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Thankfully it was only a pigeon and not a cow. Otherwise I would have fallen. That's not right. Cows can't fly to the sky. I'm not bragging. Just as Qin Guang was thinking about this, the car finally crossed the fence on the opposite track, and the front of the car was slanted towards the road. Thankfully, Qin Guang's car did not twist in midair due to the incline of the road. The front and front wheels touched the ground at almost the same time. Although there was a series of sparks on the ground, the rear wheels landed steadily, and the rear of the car quickly swung towards the mountain wall. The entire car quickly twisted and moved horizontally towards the mountain wall. The right wheel was completely separated from the road by the rebound force. At the same time, the moment the car landed, Qin Guang suddenly hit the gas pedal and his entire body shifted to the right. The rear wheels spun desperately, bringing up billowing smoke and dust. Just as the car was about to cross the drainage ditch and crash into the mountain wall, the power provided by the rear wheels finally pushed the car forward fiercely. A smooth landing. Continue to sprint. Qin Guang's crazy move not only completely overtook the BMW M4 and the Subaru Winged Leopard WXT, but also fiercely closed the distance between him and the McLaren P1 in front of him. In an instant he pounced directly behind the McLaren P1, intending to continue overtaking it at this bend. 3.5 minutes later, the GTR once again disappeared into the darkness, leaving behind everyone who was unable to calm down for a long time. Luffy's mouth was wide open and he still hadn't closed it. Ajia, on the other hand, sat on the ground, his face full of confusion. The bunch of top racers also didn't say a word. They had been in the underground racing world for many years, but they had never seen such a crazy move. The giant screen had already displayed his final result for the day, an average speed of 155.97. At the border of light and shadow, the matte black GTR shone like the sun. In Luffy's mind, she vaguely remembered what Wang Qing had said when he had called to inform her. There were 10 top racers, but he was indeed the only god of racing. He never lied. At that moment her phone rang. It was Qin Guang calling, much faster than the previous 3 days. Luffy thought to herself that he might also be unable to hide his excitement and wanted to share the joy of his success with her. When the call connected, Luffy was slightly choked up. Qin Guang, you did 150 today. Don't say that. The sheet metal of this car isn't expensive, right? I just stopped by the side of the road to take a look. The front of the car is a bit badly damaged and the anti-collision beam is deformed. Damn. Wang Qing's car is so expensive. Don't tell me it'll cost hundreds of thousands to repair? Quick, help me ask Ajia how much it'll cost. The car Wang Qing lent me was damaged, so I'll have to pay for it. Idiot. The point you're focusing on is too strange. Luffy turned to look at Ajia, whose face was full of anticipation. Sister Luffy, what did Brother Racing God say? He must be very excited right now, right? Luffy shook her head numbly. He asked you how much it'll cost to repair the front of the car and the anti-collision beam. Ajia was stunned. Huh. Just like Lu Fei, Ajia also spent a lot of effort to recover from this blow that was like a club to the head. In the end, Ajia comforted himself. Extraordinary people do extraordinary things. Perhaps Brother Racing God's uniqueness was reflected in this seemingly cute trait. That's right. That must be it. After yesterday's painful lesson this time, Qin Guang didn't run away on the spot. Instead he planned to follow the Chevrolet back to the track halfway up the mountain. Ajia left first. Just now, Qin Guang had driven the car to the training track for a moment. Tomorrow was the race to protect the car and Ajia had an important task. Not only did he have to repair the damage, but he also had to check the condition of the car as soon as possible. Although Qin Guang's precise control had reduced the impact when the car landed to the minimum after flying such a long distance, he couldn't eliminate the possibility of the car being damaged during the collision. He had to check it to make sure nothing went wrong. Chapter 255. Unlike the previous few days, today after Qin Guang finished his race, he went straight to the stage of locking the car and taking the money. At the same time, he had to determine the method of tomorrow's car protection battle. There had never been a car race like today, where there were 6 car kings and a car king's son in the 4th round. Ryuichi Takahashi and Watan Junyao had long been determined to participate in the first round of the car protection battle, but it was not clear how the 5 people who arrived later would participate. At present, in addition to Ryuichi Takahashi and Watan Junyao, there were 2 other ordinary drivers who had signed up for the first round of the car protection battle. But it was obvious that there were 7 car king level players and there were not enough seats. The 2 people who had signed up before were basically out of the picture. The world's top 10 car kings were generally about the same level. There were 3 people who were recognized as slightly better than the others. One was the new top car king Tommy Diesel. When he won the championship in Hong Kong 4 years ago, he had defeated Ferdinand, the car king of the Rising Sun City, and Felix, the diamond car king of Africa. The other was the eternal car king of New York, Schroeder. So far he had never tasted defeat, but he had not fought with Diesel, so it was hard to say who was stronger and who was weaker. The last person was somewhat similar to Qin Guang, who had been wearing a V-shaped special agent mask these days. He was also a player who always hid behind a mask. 6 years ago he won the championship in Los Angeles with an unstoppable momentum and participated in 3 consecutive car protection battles in the same year. Not only did he suppress several talented newcomers who emerged this year, but he also defeated the Rainforest Car King, Speed, the Japanese Car King, Ryuichi Takahashi, and another Ice Car King. It was not a simple defeat but a big gap. Unlike Qin Guang's V-shaped special agent mask, the man was wearing a very typical Chinese dragon mask, so some people speculated that he was Chinese, but it could not be confirmed. So far only Diesel had come and it was said that Schroeder was on the way. The last dragon-patterned car king's whereabouts were unknown. Diesel discussed with the crowd and quickly came up with a decision. There were currently 4 places in the first round of the car protection battle. In addition to Ryuichi Takahashi and Watan Junyao, it was confirmed that Ferdinand and Frant would participate for the time being. Diesel, Spade, and Felix were prepared to participate in the second round of battle, which might or might not happen. If this Matt Jeter couldn't even pass the first round, then it would be impossible for him to defeat Diesel. Hence, with Diesel's identity, it was reasonable for him to stay until the second round. As for the others, their method of deciding the order was simple as well. They just had to draw cards to see who had the most cards. The winner would go first and the loser would wait for the second round. After all, it was rare for them to move, and seeing that everyone had arrived in such an orderly manner, it was very likely that there wouldn't be a second round after the first round. Naturally, they didn't want to come here for nothing. If Qin Guang, who was rushing back, knew that these car kings were actually worried about not having a second round, he would probably just chuckle and say that they were too naive. Lu Fei got into the car and drove to the parking lot of the finish line. Qin Guang returned to the finish line from the other end. As usual, Qin Guang sat in the off-road vehicle, while Lu Fei chose a car and collected money not far away. In other people's eyes, this was an exceptionally noble and lifelike car race, but for Qin Guang, it was only the prize money and the car that was locked in the garage. When Qin Guang and Lu Fei had met just now, they had decided that since there weren't any particularly valuable high-end cars in the last 4 places, They might as well lock up the brand new Renault Alpine that Renault had sent to show off. The reason was very simple. This car hadn't been released yet, and if it was on the market, it would have a serious negative impact on the company's upcoming promotion and release of their new car. In addition to the loss of reputation, many innovative technologies that they didn't want to be exposed in advance would also be leaked. Renault definitely wouldn't be willing. That was exactly what Qin Guang wanted to take advantage of. Since they had sent their car to participate in this race, no matter what company or how rich they were, they had to abide by the rules of the race. Therefore they would first lock up their new car. Next they would have to wait for them to come knocking on their door and redeem the car with money that was far higher than its actual value. No. You can't lock this car. In the crowd, a tall, blonde Frenchman shouted angrily, waving his hands as if trying to raise his momentum. Another blonde, blue-eyed driver in a racing suit stood behind this man with an awkward expression, his eyes flashing. He felt a little embarrassed. He was the best driver in France and he had just won the World Rally Championship in the first half of the year. He had been invited by Renault to participate in the underground racing, and he had originally planned to win in one fell swoop. He didn't expect the rules of the underground racing to be so cruel, the competition to be so fierce, and the opponents to be so strong that it was beyond comprehension. He won the first 3 rounds very easily, but he didn't expect to lose in the last round and in such a tragic way. He didn't even get into the top 4, so much so that his car had to be locked up. For a conceited racer, this was simply trampling on his self-confidence and self-esteem. He had no face left. But this was still not the most embarrassing thing for him. Before coming here he knew the cruel rules of the car race. He himself didn't care about it. He felt that since he had chosen to participate in the race, of course he had to accept the rules, or else he shouldn't have come. Even if it was just to protect his reputation, he shouldn't try to act shamelessly after losing. But the manager of Renault didn't think so. He felt that this new car contained too much of the company's new technology, so he was determined not to let the car be locked up. This manager was a senior executive of a dignified multinational company, so he decided to act shamelessly in front of everyone. Luffy only held his hand and watched coldly as the Frenchman jumped up and down, not saying a word. No one could act shamelessly in a car race, whether you were a British prince or the prince of an Arab sheik. It was all the same. There was no need for Luffy to say any more nonsense. The organizer of the car race would naturally deal with this matter. Mr. Basile, I'm sorry we can't satisfy your request. Since the winner has already designated your car, then you must hand over the key. This is the rule of our car race. If you want to violate our rules, then not only will you be going against my Hong Kong car race, but even Count Lafontaine, who presides over the Paris car race, will become your company's enemy. You have to understand the seriousness of this matter. A middle-aged Chinese man stood in front of the angry Frenchman and spoke calmly. This man was able to organize a race of such a scale, and was also able to subdue the rebellious underground drivers. Needless to say, his status was extraordinary and his bearing was even more extraordinary. Chapter 256. The Frenchman's expression suddenly froze. He was a manager who had worked his way up from the technical level. He wasn't very familiar with the rules of the car racing competition, but he knew that the Chinese man in front of him wasn't joking. He wanted to bow his head, but as the highest person in charge of the company, he really didn't want to take on such a heavy responsibility. Qin Guang saw that the situation was getting out of the car, so he decided to get out of the car and see what was going on. Uncle Qing had specifically sent 6 bodyguards to protect him, so he didn't have to worry about anyone pulling off his mask. Well, Qin Guang didn't want to admit it. In fact, his purpose of getting out of the car was very simple. He wanted to stir up trouble and make more money. No. Absolutely not. Basile couldn't think of any other way, so he simply grabbed the key from the driver's hand, then sat in the car and locked the window. He was completely acting like a rascal. He couldn't be blamed for doing this. In order to configure a top sports car that could compete in the underground racing world, the company had invested too much key technology into this car. It was even more than the new car they were going to release. Once this prototype fell into someone else's hands, the technical improvement ideas of the company for the next 2 years would be exposed. He was also the one who pushed for this matter. He was a proud technician and he was too eager to find a suitable opportunity to prove his results. He didn't expect to fail miserably in such an easy task. Obviously, even if he were to act shamelessly, They wouldn't let him go so easily. The middle-aged Chinese man gave a look, and someone went up with a hammer, ready to knock on the window and drag the rascal out. Basile had no choice but to roll down the window and yell, "Isn't there a second stage of your car racing competition? If he didn't win the second stage, then this car isn't his, right?" The middle-aged Chinese man smiled and nodded. "That's right. So Mr. Basile, you don't have to be so excited. We're just temporarily locking the car up. If he loses any of the next 3 races, you can still take the car away." Basile couldn't help but be tempted when he heard that. However, he looked at Diesel and the others not far away and he couldn't make up his mind. At this moment Qin Guang walked over. Over the past few days his V-shaped special agent team mask had been firmly remembered by everyone. Even if Qin Guang didn't say anything, everyone's eyes gradually shifted to him. Finally they saw this man many people thought in their hearts. With a height of 1.8 meters, Qin Guang didn't look tall in the crowd, but in the eyes of others, this masked man was growing taller and taller. Even though he did not speak, his aura gradually enveloped the entire area. Even the person in charge of the Hong Kong car gambling competition, who had been calm from beginning to end, could not help but raise his eyebrows and look at Qin Guang with great interest. No one knew what Qin Guang was thinking at this time. "Damn it, I just came here to act cool on a whim. Why the hell are all of you looking at me like that?" No one would have thought that under Qin Guang's cold expression he was ridiculing them in his heart. "Damn it, these people's eyes are so scary, it's like they want to eat me. Should I go back into the car?" No. It wasn't easy to come up with an idea to make a lot of money. There won't be another chance like this. Hang in there. Qin Guang. You must hang in there. You are the second officer of the An Royal whose hands are stained with blood. You are the invincible car god. Don't be afraid. I'm not kidding, I've rarely been in an environment like this. Although it's nice to see you guys look at me with admiration, there are too many people looking at me. It's a bit stressful. Wait, what the hell is this unmanned helicopter flying above my head? Qin Guang glanced at it out of the corner of his eye, and his heart was racing. The giant screen was actually a close-up of his face taken by the unmanned helicopter's camera. Forget it, I'll just smile at this time. Therefore, the corner of Qin Guang's mouth slightly curled up. With a faint smile, he walked to the driver's door of the Renault Alpine and slightly lowered his head to look at Basile. Basile also turned his head to look at Qin Guang standing outside. His heart gradually began to beat faster. He didn't want to admit that he was weak, but he felt a terrifying pressure from the masked man. This is the man who, in 4 days, turned the world's underground racing world upside down? If he could really win this time, then there was no doubt that he would be the best car racing man in the world. This was a god who was walking step by step to the top. Suddenly, Qin Guang extended 2 fingers and said in his pure medieval English accent, "I'll give you 2 choices. 1, give me €1,000,000 now and I won't lock the car today. You can drive it away immediately. 2, when I become the car king, you'll have to give me €2,000,000 to take this car away. You decide." After saying that, Qin Guang turned around without another word and went straight back to the off-road vehicle. When he finally sat down, he gently patted his chest and softly said to himself, "Damn, fortunately I have strong mental fortitude. I almost couldn't speak." The driver sitting in front rolled his eyes. "My brother, you call that strong mental fortitude?" Qin Guang left decisively, but he didn't realize how arrogant his words were to Basile. The first choice was fine, but he actually proposed the second choice in public and in the presence of so many car kings. This was clearly telling everyone that he didn't care about these world-famous car kings at all. The veins on Diesel's bald head bulged. Wu Panjuanyao's coquettish face suddenly burst into a smile, looking somewhat sinister. Takahashi Ryuichi snorted coldly. But Frant had already shouted, "Arrogant guy. Tomorrow I'll use my 1200 horsepower monster to make you understand. You're just a condescending bastard." The other car kings didn't react much better, but they weren't as impulsive as this young man Frant. Qin Guang heard Frant's clamor from afar. He stared blankly for a moment before reacting. "Damn, I'm not talking to you, why are you so angry?" "Well, didn't I seem a bit too arrogant just now?" "Forget it, I've already said it, I don't care anymore." After waiting for a while, Lu Fei and Uncle Ching finally got back in the car. "The French looked down on you, he chose you for the second condition. You're really treacherous. The normal landing price of Alpine in China is no more than 2 million RMB, but because of you, it's become €2 million. Qin Guang grinned. Serves them right. Wanting to promote mass-produced cars in the underground racing scene was a stupid decision. I just let them pay a little tuition fee. For a multinational company like them, €2 million is nothing more than the cost of finding a spokesperson. It's not unbearable. It's better than me selling the car to their competitors, right? Unfortunately, he's not very smart. If it were me, I'd directly choose €1 million and drive away now. Lu Fei poked Qin Guang's head. Others think you might lose, so they bet. Qin Guang laughed. I like gamblers. Chapter 257. Just as Qin Guang and the others were about to leave, an image suddenly appeared on the giant screen. In the image, another heavy truck was slowly driving into the parking lot of the starting point. Luffy glanced at it and exclaimed, "The German is here. Didn't they say he was rock climbing? Why is he here?" Herman. Who? Schroeder. A flawless racing machine. Leaning back, Qin Guang stretched his waist and asked, "Really? That's getting interesting." Just as he finished speaking, another heavy truck drove over. Luffy suddenly straightened up from the back seat. The parking lot outside was even noisier. Who is this? Qin Guang's interest was finally piqued. The Dragon King of Cars. I think he's also from China. Like you, he likes to wear a mask and never shows his face to others. Before you, he was considered the racer closest to God. Of the top 10 racers in the world, only the Eskimo didn't come. See, this is what you get for running like crazy on the first day. These people are crazy. Luffy's emotions were a little out of control. The appearance of these two people was too unexpected. The people outside also became restless. Although he didn't know much about the King of Cars in the underground racing world, Qin Guang's fighting spirit was gradually aroused. Was he finally going to face the adored opponents of the world? Qin Guang turned his head to look at the two heavy trucks on the giant screen. His eyes flashed fiercely. I have a new idea. It's a crazy idea. Luffy heard the fierceness in his words. She turned to look at him. What do you want to do? Tomorrow we'll settle 3 battles to protect the carriage. Help me contact the organizing committee. As long as they agree, I'll solve all of them in one day. What? Are you crazy? Luffy was shocked. You'll collapse from exhaustion if you run 3 races in a row. They won't agree either. Qin Guang shook his head. I won't collapse. You've never seen me at my limit. As he said this, Qin Guang recalled the scene when he drove the Alto to 400 km per hour in the racing god's training ground. Damn it, this is really unbearable to look back on. If I lose control even a little bit, I won't even have the chance to turn into a meat patty. Instead, I'll be turned into minced meat, the kind that can be used to cook dumplings. Compared to the racing god training ground, the underground racing outside was too gentle. What are you trying to do? Seeing how serious he was, Lu Fei began to seriously consider his request. Since all the top racecar kings are here, the Ice Snow Racecar King doesn't seem to be very powerful. Then let the 9 of them attack together. I was the last to start the race. All 10 cars were racing at the same time. I gave all of them 3 chances. Within these 3 chances, no matter who stole my first place, I would lose the title of Racing King. But if I win, I want to take away all their cars. Impossible. The Racing Kings also have their own pride. They won't agree to such a request. This is an insult to them. Uncle Qing, please help me contact a local racecar king in Xiangjiang. I will make a trip there now, and then they will definitely agree to my request. If they don't agree, I will choose to withdraw from the race. They will never have the chance to challenge me. If they are really crazy about racing, they won't refuse me. Until Qin Guang got into Ah Yuan's car, Lu Fei didn't understand where Qin Guang got this crazy confidence. Lu Fei didn't understand Qin Guang's realm at all. In fact, before he made this crazy decision, Qin Guang didn't understand it either. He just wanted to maximize his own benefits. Since there was only one chance in the racing competition, if he wanted to do it, he would make it big, the bigger the better. Later on, others would know that he was just giving away money, so naturally no one would want to gamble with him. Therefore, once he made the decision, Qin Guang understood the reason behind it. A mature racecar king was bound to experience many accidents. The racing field was ever-changing. Normally speaking, there was no such thing as an invincible general. It was a pity that an ordinary racecar king could make many mistakes in his life, and encounter many accidents that weren't fatal. But all it would take was one truly tragic collision, and the racecar king would leave this world forever. Different from others, Qin Guang had died 95 times on the road to becoming the racing god, and there were countless other non-fatal collisions. The experience he had was more than 10 times or 95 times that of others. Since he had decided to stand on this stage and thoroughly show his hard-won skills to the world, if he didn't bring out his true limits, he would be letting down the audience who were infatuated with racing, and even more so, letting down the 95 times he had died in the racing god training field. He was afraid that he wouldn't have such an opportunity to race to his heart's content in the future, so he might as well let this rare opportunity shine to the extreme. He wouldn't leave any regrets for himself, nor would he leave any regrets for others. This was respect for others and respect for himself. He had been too arrogant just now, and since he had already angered the other racecar kings, he might as well add fuel to the fire and push this race to the top. From now on he would truly stand at the pinnacle of the world's racing industry. Therefore he used a Yuan's Volkswagen to run an average speed of 163.78. Everyone was confused. Today's race had clearly ended and his car had already been sent away. Why was he using someone else's car to break the record of 155.97, which had been thought to be unsurpassable? Was this guy trying to make all racing enthusiasts lose the courage to continue racing? The blood-red figure of 163.78 on the giant screen fiercely shocked everyone's eyes. The 9 racecar kings weren't much better off than the others. They all stared at the giant screen dumbfoundedly. Within a day he had switched to another car and broken another record. To him, this dangerous winding mountain road seemed to have become a straight line. What was his purpose in doing this? Was he trying to make everyone give up on protecting their cars? It was undeniable that people like Frant and Ferdinand were in despair when they saw this number. Diesel smiled bitterly and said to the others, "It seems like we shouldn't have come here?" There was silence. Even the Dragon King and Schroeder, who had just gathered, were speechless. Unwillingness surged in the hearts of the 9 racecars. They had been racecar kings for too long and no one had ever looked down on them like this. Their reputations weren't based on bragging. They were all achieved bit by stepping on the blood and tears of countless people in the bitter battles where life and death hung by a thread. No one could deny that they were powerful. But now they felt incomparable disappointment and fear, perhaps mixed with a trace of unavoidable anger. But what use was that? Chapter 258. Today this man had completely belittled everyone with his words. Then he turned around and set a track record that seemed impossible to surpass. He was so unscrupulous. And he was using a car that he had just picked up, not the GTR that he had been using for the past few days. This was downright contempt, but no one present dared to say that they could get close to that terrifying record. It was as if they didn't live in the same world. If he wasn't driving someone else's car, these car kings would even think that he was using technology from the future 100 years later. Then Qin Guang's face with the V Special Agent mask appeared on the giant screen. He had just snatched the seat of the stunned Mr. X. "Hello friends. I'm a GTR racer. You can call me Mr. V. Now I have a great idea to share with you." The V Special Agent mask on the giant screen had a strange smile as he spoke slowly. Everyone held their breath and looked at the giant screen, waiting to hear what he had to say. "Are you going to destroy our last bit of dignity? Tomorrow will be my last day in the racing competition. I know that 8 of the only 10 car kings on Earth are here and one of them is the son of a car king. But that's not important. I'm tired of these pointless challenges. I just want to end this boring race as soon as possible." Qin Guang's voice was extremely cold, arrogant, and annoyed. "I really have to thank this arrogant, cool mask. My acting skills are terrible but I have a mask." Qin Guang thought this in his heart but he continued, "So, I have a good idea to share with you. Tomorrow I plan to race with the 9 of you. There will be 9 cars competing at the same time and I'll start in the last row. I'll give you 3 chances to beat me. If I don't win in any of them I'll be considered a complete failure. If I win 3 times in a row then I want all of your cars. You can choose not to accept it. Then I'll withdraw from the race. This is your last chance to challenge me. You have 30 seconds to consider my request." Qin Guang felt that his lines were excellent, but he was immediately worried. What if this group of people chickened out? Hence he immediately coughed lightly and added, "If I really have to retire from the race with regret, I'll use the GTR to leave an average speed record of more than 170 km/h. If you're interested, you can slowly try it. If there is a day in the future when someone can surpass 170, perhaps I will appear in front of you again." After saying that, he began to pray in his heart. "I'm King cocky. If you guys can still back down, I'll stew my own tongue and eat it." As expected, anger quickly overwhelmed despair and fear in the hearts of Schroeder and the others. Although everyone was in despair, they had never competed before. They would never admit defeat. He wants everyone's car? Was that important? None of the people who came here cared about money. "Even if you really are a god, we will use our actions to let you hear the roar of mortals. We are definitely not the king of cheap cars." At the same time, just as Qin Guang expected, this group of people could become the king of cars because they were the world's most fanatical racing enthusiasts. After waiting for so many years, a godlike opponent had finally appeared. If they couldn't challenge him, they would regret it for the rest of their lives. "We accept your conditions. Tomorrow, fight to the death." In the end, Diesel was chosen as the representative. He stood at the front and roared with his loud voice. More than 60,000 fans roared in excitement and madness in unison on the huge half-mountain racetrack. In the decades since the underground racing was born, there had never been a race that was as worthy of everyone's anticipation as tomorrow. Regardless of whether this crazy Mr. V could create the miracle that he claimed to be tomorrow, he would definitely go down in history. Thousands of kilometers away, Zhuo Jingxi and Lin Jingwei, who had been waiting in front of the computer screen, looked at each other. They had never seen Qin Guang like this, but he was so handsome that it made their hearts beat wildly. Seeing that Qin Guang had finally returned to his car, Lin Jingwei, as the representative chosen by everyone, finally made a call. Qin Guang was just about to brag to Lu Fei when he heard his phone ring. He looked down and saw that it was Lin Jingwei calling. He was extremely puzzled. "Brother Guang, you're so King awesome. I really regret dragging Gaoya along to watch the live broadcast. You're going against the heavens. We've been watching the live broadcast of the mountain track. We're all watching you race." The first sentence that Lin Jingwei said made Qin Guang lay burn on the outside and tender on the inside. Damn it, my pretentious appearance was seen by this group of grandsons? Faster thief. I'll definitely be laughed at when I go back, right? But from his tone, it didn't seem like it. On the other side, Sun Xiaoxuan had already grabbed the phone and said loudly, "Qin Guang, don't be like this. It's very dangerous. How can you compare yourself to others like this?" "I'm sorry, I couldn't help but tell Lin Jingwei. I didn't know he could get a live broadcast signal." Then the phone was snatched away by Xiong. "Brother Guang, no matter what, you'll always be my boss." By Nyangzi's voice came again. "I'm King in love with you, Brother Guang." Then it was Gaoya. "I'm in love with you too." On the other side, Lin Jingwei's screams could be heard. "No." Then it was Zhuo Jingxi. "No matter what, you must be safe. I'm in love with you too." "Qin Guang, I want to have your babies." Sun Xiaoxuan actually threw caution to the wind, but she sounded like she was joking. Perhaps she really wanted to take advantage of this strange time to say something abnormal. "I want to have your babies too." Gaoyu was provoking Lin Jingwei again. Qin Guang couldn't help but laugh out loud. Sure enough, the way he acted was too cool just now. The people on the other side were already abnormal. When I go back, I must watch the video. That way I can be awakened by my own handsomeness every day. Don't be infatuated with me. I'm a living legend. Let me tell you, you don't know how fast my heart was beating when I was talking just now. I was so nervous. Luckily, I was wearing a mask. Otherwise, you could all see that my face was completely pale. Don't be fooled by my domineering and handsome appearance. I'm actually panicking inside. It's just like when I was in primary school and hosted Children's Day. My heart would pound when I thought of tens of thousands of people listening to me. Qin Guang patted his chest as he spoke with lingering fear. He could finally relax. If he didn't find the right opportunity to say these words, he really wouldn't be able to calm down. The people on the other side of the phone, Lu Fei and Uncle Qing in the car, and the driver who was looking at Qin Guang with a face full of admiration were all stunned. This grandson's style had changed again. Chapter 259. It was late at night. In her pajamas, Lu Fei paced back and forth anxiously in the living room of the suite. She had been back to the hotel for about 2 hours, and Qin Guang had already closed the door and gone to bed an hour ago. Lu Fei had been struggling until now. She had plucked up the courage to knock on Qin Guang's door several times, but she eventually put her hand down. Although Qin Guang was very confident in himself, Lu Fei still couldn't calm down at the thought of him participating in such a crazy race the next day. If he really succeeded, he would really become a god from then on. But if he failed, well, failure in the ordinary sense was not unacceptable. But Lu Fei was afraid that he would die in the race the next day. So Lu Fei told herself that no matter what, shouldn't she at least leave one more memory with him today? Or perhaps it could be said to be a real encouragement to him. But in the end, after pacing around for nearly half an hour, Lu Fei returned to her room. It wasn't that she had changed her mind, but she knew that the race the next day was too important. Since Qin Guang hadn't brought it up himself, perhaps it was because a man's essence energy would affect his racing condition. She couldn't seduce him after such a time. If she really did it with him the whole night, wouldn't it be a huge sin for him to compete with dark circles under his eyes the next day? It seems like it's not just my first time. He also said that he was an old virgin. If he got greedy, he would definitely ask for it again and again, right? At least that was what was written in the books. So Lu Fei decided that she had to believe in him. Since she chose to believe in his success, she would leave the most precious reward for his triumphant return. Unfortunately, Lu Fei didn't know that Qin Guang was currently facing the computer, looking at the treasures he had just collected and chuckling. An action movie to his heart's content, 4 layers of super absorbent toilet paper, a beautiful trash can, and a manly 3-piece suit. Nothing could be missing. He had no choice. He had already transferred 4 million to Old Man. The 4-fold recovery soup was waiting for him in the 5 capitals. Old Man Guang was terrified at the thought of that thing. If something really happened to it, he would definitely have a nosebleed as he walked, right? Safety first. Allow the old man to masturbate first. Around 6 o'clock in the afternoon, the track was already packed with people. Every parking lot's capacity had reached its limit. Not only could they not park their cars, but even people could barely find a place to stand. Nearly 120,000 people crowded into each parking lot. Because of this special competition, too many people had set off overnight and crossed the ocean to get here. At that moment, Qin Guang wasn't at the mid-mountain racetrack. Instead, he was at Jie's modification factory. After Qin Guang had decided on such a crazy match yesterday, Jie hadn't slept a wink until now. He felt that his responsibility was too great, and it was about to exceed the limits of what his heart could bear. At this time, Qin Guang was pointing at the hood and making another request, which made him even more reluctant to agree. Brother Racing God, this isn't too good, right? These 2 turbochargers were originally prepared for the straight-line acceleration race. They couldn't be used in the bends. It's very easy to get into trouble. Jie struggled to speak. Qin Guang shook his head. That guy called Farant said his car has 1,200 horsepower. Although I don't know how much horsepower the other car kings have, and it doesn't mean that the more horsepower a car has, the better the car's performance is. But since I've already boasted, I have to win cleanly. So, turn on these 2 turbochargers for me. I want 1,000 horsepower. Jie still refused to agree. Qin Guang grinned. I know you're worried about me, but you're worrying too much. The reason I'm making this request is because I know I can definitely control it. Although I'm crazy, I'm not reckless. Lu Fei stood on the side. In fact, she wanted to persuade Qin Guang like Jie, but she knew that since Qin Guang had already made up his mind, nothing she said would work. In the end, Jie proposed a compromise, which was to add an extra switch in the car. Qin Guang could decide whether to turn on the 2 turbochargers or not. Under the premise of ensuring performance stability, Qin Guang agreed to Jie's proposal. When it was 7:30, Qin Guang and the others finally set off for the mountain track. If it weren't for Qin Guang's iconic mat guitar opening the way, the people in front of them blocking the mountainside would have made way when they saw them coming. Almost none of them would have been able to get to the starting point parking lot before 8 o'clock. Along the way, Lu Fei kept turning her head to look at Qin Guang from time to time. Why do you always look at me like I want to say something? Just say what you want to say. Qin Guang took the initiative to speak. Lu Fei shook her head fiercely. No, nothing. She thought to herself, how could I say something like that? I can't tell you before the race starts that if you win today, I'll sleep with you. Right? Please help me book a ticket back to Wujing tonight. Can I book it now? Qin Guang suddenly said. Lu Fei was stunned. Huh? You're leaving tonight? Qin Guang took a deep breath. Yeah, I've been away from Wujing for a few days. My mom's going to have surgery the day after tomorrow, so it's good to go back early to accompany her. I'm just worried that all the cars in today's live auction won't be sold out. Excluding the Renault car, there are still 12 other cars. From your tone, it sounds like you're already treating other people's cars as if they're already yours. Even though she had seen this guy's confidence in racing, Lu Fei was still intoxicated by his nonchalant attitude, treating other people purely as cash machines. Qin Guang nodded heavily. That's right. From the moment they agreed to my request, their cars were no longer theirs. Right, where's the car's CD? Can I play music through Bluetooth? I plan to play some exciting songs for myself during the race later. Play music. Lu Fei helped him connect his phone to the Bluetooth and looked at him strangely. Qin Guang nodded. Yeah, when I was learning to drive, there was always music to accompany me. I listened to some songs to refresh myself, and it could be considered as getting back to the feeling I had when I was learning to drive. He didn't finish his sentence. There was music in the Racing God training ground, but it was all annoying 8-bit game soundtrack. But what he said was true. To bring out the best, of course, he had to completely restore the environment at that time. When the team finally drove slowly into the parking lot, there was almost no space in the parking lot of more than 40,000 people. Fortunately, the race organizers had reserved a corner of the parking lot for them. Otherwise, Lu Fei and the others wouldn't even have a place to park their cars. Completely different from the previous days, there was no sign of chaos on the mountain track today. On the contrary, it was filled with an extremely solemn atmosphere. Even if someone spoke, they tried to keep their voice down. Chapter 260. Among the tens of thousands of people spoke in low voices at the same time, filling the huge parking lot with a buzzing sound, which sounded like the dull roar of the sea before a storm. The 9 top racers had already parked their cars in front of the starting line in advance. After Qin Guang left yesterday, the 9 racers competed in advance to determine the ranking. The rules of their competition were very simple. The one with the fastest speed in a single lap would be ranked last today. Qin Guang had his arrogance, and these top racers also had their dignity. No matter how desperate they were, they would never admit defeat in advance. Even if it was just to make themselves lose a little more dignified, the 9 racers did their best in yesterday's fight, only hoping to be closer to the matte GTR when they set off. Finally, the matte GTR appeared on the aerial image of the aircraft on the giant screen. It's here. In an instant, the buzzing sound in the crowd stopped abruptly, and the parking lot of tens of thousands of people became silent without warning. Everyone's eyes turned in unison, either looking at the team from afar, or staring blankly at the giant screen. No matter whether it was a successful man in a suit, a punk man and woman in a metal leather jacket, or a racer who had just poked his head out of his car, no one was an exception. Today, no matter what the final result was, at least when this man appeared on the scene, he created a huge psychological pressure on everyone. It was the same for the other 3 parking lots on the mountain track. Qin Guang didn't even need to say a word. When these people thought of what he was going to do here today, they would subconsciously push him to the altar in their hearts. Although I don't want to admit it, my heart is beating faster. Wu Pan Junyao, who grabbed the 5th position, turned his head and said to Ryuichi Takahashi next to him. Ryuichi Takahashi's face was not very good. In yesterday's competition, he actually lost to Wu Pan Junyao and only got the 4th position. Humph. Arrogant guy. Although it is undeniable that he is very strong, he will definitely pay for his excessive insolence. In any case, he can fight all of us with his own strength, which is enough to make him a real legend. Diesel's mentality was much better than others, and he said with a smile. But if he loses, then he will become a joke. Farant, who was in the distance, was still unconvinced. The German, Schroeder, sat next to his number 7 car with a cold expression and said nothing. Before today, his undefeatable legend had been broken. He had lost to Diesel and the Dragon Mark Chariot King consecutively, which had left him in a bad mood. The man with the dragon-patterned mask sat in his number 9 blue racing car. Beneath the mask, his eyes appeared exceptionally indifferent. In the previous night's qualifying race, he had gone all out to get the 9th position. He would be starting next to the black GTR. He wanted to prove that he was the strongest racer tonight. Only by competing side by side with that person and defeating him fair and square would the world be unable to refute him. Thinking back to 6 years ago, didn't he suddenly fade out of the racing world because he felt that he was invincible? Now that a tyrannical opponent had finally appeared, what a thing to be excited and ecstatic about. He didn't know what others were thinking at this time, but in any case Qin Guang was very annoyed. Originally he had been thinking about Lu Fei's advancement benefits today. According to the previous steps, it seemed that he should directly put his hand into her collar today. Just thinking about it made him look forward to it. But why are so many of you staring at me? What's the meaning of that unmanned helicopter flying around my car? Can you guys give me some King privacy? The answer to him was, of course, no. Knowing what he was thinking, Lu Fei giggled and patted his shoulder, saying, "Don't look so sad. I know what you want. I'll say it here today. If you can really create a legend tonight, then it's not impossible for me to go crazy with you. Anyway, sooner or later won't I have to give it to someone? I think you're quite pleasing to the eye. Although you're a little poor, I quite like you." After that, Lu Fei got out of the car. Before Lu Fei got out of the car, Qin Guang said to her, "Then I thank you for your liking. Lu Fei, you have to remember everything that happened today. I can say very responsibly that this must be the most gorgeous racing you will ever see in your life. Even if another 50 years pass, even if the car manufacturing technology is developed for another 50 years, no one can reproduce what I did today." Lu Fei looked back, blinked, smiled, and then turned to leave. Watching her figure gradually disappear into the crowd, Qin Guang happily clenched his fist and thought, "Let's do it tonight." However, he quickly shook his head. It was obviously impossible today. After dealing with these rascals, he had to go back to the 5 capitals. But it didn't matter. Lu Fei wouldn't grow wings and fly. She was his meat. It didn't matter if he ate earlier or later. Although he couldn't take advantage of Lu Fei, the girl standing at the starting line today was really good. She was even more beautiful than the previous 4 days. Qin Guang shook his head and thought, "I didn't see it wrong, right? This woman looks a bit familiar. She seems to be the woman who just won the top 3 of Hong Kong's Miss competition. Do your family know that you are so bold and unrestrained? Do your fans know? Aren't you afraid that today's photos will be posted on the internet?" Qin Guang thought like this. In fact, he didn't know that many celebrities nowadays, especially newcomers, would do anything in order to be famous and promoted. Not to mention being the girl at the starting line of the car racing competition, it was common for them to deliberately expose themselves in public. What's more, through this car racing competition, these new stars might even be able to get the appreciation of the car racing competition's organizers. Qin Guang rubbed his eyes and stared at the girl in front of him. Finally, another gunshot was heard. A bright light flashed in the distance. The battle to protect the car in the Hong Kong car racing competition, which was called the top battle by many car fans, officially began. Qin Guang scolded the girl in front of him in his heart for not being professional and actually wearing a nipple pad. He stepped on the accelerator fiercely and pulled the horn of his final battle. If someone was sitting in his co-driver seat at this time, they would be surprised to find that his left hand had disappeared. It didn't really disappear, but the movement was too fast and too strange, to the point that the naked eye couldn't even catch the trace of his left hand. In addition, his legs were in a state of fog. It was also an overly intense operation, making his legs difficult to be captured by the light and shadow. In the first stage of the car racing competition, no matter which round of the competition, the difference between the strong and the weak was very obvious at the beginning. However, there was almost no difference between the 10 cars that appeared on the track at the same time. Even if there was a difference, it was extremely subtle. Everyone was clearly sprinting forward, but from the perspective of the camera, these 10 cars were relatively still. Until they were about to cut into the first corner, Ferdinand, who occupied the first position, suddenly pulled the body of the Aston Martin Zagato to the inside line, and the 10 cars that were relatively still finally moved violently. When Ferdinand, who was in front, was about to enter the corner, Qin Guang's eyes narrowed. "It's time. Today's task is very difficult. I'll go all out from the beginning." Chapter 261. So, let's start with some background music. Qin Guang's left hand moved quickly and pressed the play button on his phone. Bon Jovi's "It's My Life" suddenly sounded. Along with the prelude, Qin Guang gently placed his left hand's finger on the supercharger switch that Jia had prepared. 1,000 horsepower. Go. For a racer like Frant, although his car's horsepower was as high as 1,200, It was impossible for him to maximize the power on the winding and rugged mountain track of Xiangjiang's middle mountain track. The 1200 horsepower monster's power could only help him in accelerating in a straight line. But in order to obtain this excessive power, he also made the car too heavy. The two cancelled each other out, so his acceleration ability might not be much better than Qin Guang's lightweight GTR. Different from these people, the biggest change after Qin Guang unlocked the 1000 horsepower was not just a simple increase in power, but also his true limit. On this mountain path, the previous 800 horsepower was like a sprinter sprinting on an empty stomach. Other people only increased the horsepower on straights, and even when entering corners, it would become more difficult to control the speed. But for Qin Guang, it was an overall improvement of the car's performance. It was only at this moment that the performance of this car was truly worthy of his ability. Of course, in the past 4 days he chose to suppress himself, not to deliberately show off, but to continuously improve his muscle memory after switching the left steering wheel to the right. Today he had finally found his true racing god state. Speed up. Crazy speed up. Even when facing the king of cars he still goes crazy. Mr. X roared at the top of his lungs. Qin Guang stared straight ahead, no longer paying attention to his left and right. He had already pulled to the center line at 163 km per hour. At the first corner he was going to forcefully attack the Dragon Car King next to him, using a bug-like 163 km per hour. If it was an opponent like He Tianzhao at this moment, perhaps he would consider forcefully pressuring the outside, forcing Qin Guang to slow down or go further out, which could even make his car lose control and fly off the cliff. However, the dignity of the Chariot King made him choose to fight fair and square, and he was defeated. Halfway through the bend, Qin Guang continued to press forward. He was still on the outside, and his next target was Diesel's Ford GT. The veins on Diesel's bald head were bulging. His right hand, which was gripping the steering wheel, was about to shatter it. His right foot was trying to step on the accelerator, forcing the car's horsepower to explode. His left hand was controlling the gear lever and the handbrake, while his left foot was constantly stepping on the clutch, controlling the car's turning and drifting. But it was no use. Like a black meteor, Qin Guang's GTR surpassed him in the blink of an eye. Just like the song said, "It's my life. This is my life." And it's nowhere never seize the moment. The opportunity is fleeting. Today was Qin Guang's chance to change his life. He was going to use his invincible ability to firmly grasp everything he wanted in his hands. Everyone's speed was very fast, far surpassing the peak performance of the previous 4 days, but still, no one could stop the murderous Qin Guang. Felix persisted all the way to the second half of the downhill section, but he was still ruthlessly overtaken by Qin Guang. When he finished the whole course at an average speed of 167 km per hour, the 9 top car kings who were gradually catching up were left with nothing but despair. Qin Guang stopped in the parking lot at the finish line and quietly waited for them. When they all arrived, Qin Guang rolled down the window. "I know that the 3 of you are the best, but your stupidity is that you still treat me as an opponent on the same level as you. You still have 2 chances." With that, Qin Guang started the car and returned to the starting point along the mountain road. No one had expected that 9 top experts of the king grade would be defeated in such a straightforward manner, and in such a miserable manner. Their pride and aloofness made it impossible for them to use underhanded tricks like the other ordinary racers. Even their initial ranking was based on the so-called spirit of chivalry. Just as Ruffy had expected in the first round of the race to protect the car, their performance was even worse than the ordinary racers from before. "Bastard! That detestable bastard!" Ferrant jumped out of the car and roared angrily. He waved his hands and viciously kicked the wheel of his car. He had come with the glory of the Shaq family and started from the 3rd seat in the 2nd row, but in the end he couldn't even last the first half of the race. But he wasn't the one who had suffered the most. It was the dragon-patterned car king Diesel and Schroeder. The others had more or less experienced failure once or twice, but the 3 of them had practically never been defeated until now. What made them feel even more despair was that they clearly knew that if they still had 2 chances to challenge him, they would probably end up with the same result for the rest of their lives if they still didn't make any changes like the one they just lost. "Everyone, I'm sorry. Can you give me the first seat in the next round?" No one had thought that the first to make this decision would be the Germans, who were famous for being inflexible and stubborn. When Schroeder said this, he didn't look ashamed at all. Instead he looked relieved. Yes, this was the only way he could think of to win. It was the only way. Spade shook his head in pain. Schroeder. I'm sorry, we're too weak. He understood Schroeder's mentality. No one looked down on the Germans at this time. Instead they were all secretly ashamed. In order to protect the dignity of the car kings, this German had let go of his aloofness. Even if he didn't have the spirit of chivalry, as long as he could win once, he wouldn't mind being mocked by the world after today. Diesel also stood up. That's right, Felix. Can you give me the second seat? We can't lose again. Just then the Japanese Ryuichi Takahashi suddenly walked over with a dejected look. Everyone, I choose to withdraw. I'm not qualified to participate in the next round. I can't continue to drive the GTR in front of him. Everyone was silent again. They could understand the feeling of a proud Japanese like Ryuichi Takahashi being severely defeated by another person driving his favorite car. It was really too hard to bear. I also announce my withdrawal. This was originally a competition for 8 people. If I continue to stay on the field, it will only affect your performance. The Englishman Ferdinand also shook his head in disappointment. He remembered his bold words before he came here, saying that Xinjiang was still ruled by the British Empire in the racing field, but now it had become a joke. After adjusting their moods, the other 7 people who chose to continue the competition slowly drove back along the mountain road with a determined state of mind. The car kings have compromised on the ranking. When all the cars lined up on the starting line again, Mr. X exclaimed. This change caught him and all the other racing fans off guard. They were no longer fixated on their initial rankings. This proved that these racing kings had completely admitted one thing, and that was that the opponents they were about to face were indeed more tyrannical than they could bear. Here were the 9 people who were recognized as the best in the world at racing. Only the Dragon Pattern King stubbornly chose to line up with him at the back. Schroeder and Diesel had been at the forefront from the beginning. Chapter 262. Luffy couldn't believe what she was seeing. She turned to ask Ajia, "Are my eyes playing tricks on me?" With Diesel and Schroeder's skills, if the 2 of them were at the front from the beginning, then their advantage would be too great. The others can't interfere with them at all. Ajia rubbed his eyes. "Sister Luffy, you're not seeing things. They did move to the front. The other thing is that the Japanese and the British seem to have withdrawn from the race. What a bunch of despicable guys. This isn't fair," Luffy said indignantly. Ajia bit the bullet and denied Luffy's words. "I don't think so. The rules of the race were proposed by Brother Racing God. As the challenger, the other side accepted his almost humiliating rules. Of course, they have the right to decide the order of the race. I don't think it's unfair. Instead, I think Brother Racing God is bullying a group of opponents who are still using cold weapons with a Gatling gun. We're not on the same level at all. This is really unfair." She didn't expect Ajia to hit the nail on the head. Luffy nodded approvingly. "Although that's the case, I really don't know how he can win this time. Have you forgotten? So far, Brother Racing God has never used a certain thing. The NOS system? That's right. Are you crazy? This is a curve race. If he accelerates with nitrogen, he'll definitely fly off the track." Didn't he already fly off the track once? If it were someone else competing, of course I wouldn't think so. But if it's him, no matter what he does now, I won't be surprised. In the afternoon, I was still saying that 1,000 horsepower would definitely go out of control, but in the last race he exploded the horsepower from the beginning. The more Ajia said this, the more Luffy felt that it was possible. Although she knew that Qin Guang was invincible in the car, Luffy still ran towards the track. She planned to persuade Qin Guang not to touch that damn thing. Just as she took a step forward, the starting gun on the other side had already been fired. The second duel had begun. He was a step too late. In the chariot, Qin Guang could also see the changes in his opponents. The Dragon Pattern Chariot King beside him was still reserved, but the other 2 had completely put down their airs. But what did that matter? Charge. The Mat Jeter once again let out the loudest roar at the beginning of the game. It was a roar that made people despair. With Qin Guang's desire to change his fate. Ruthlessly, like a bolt of lightning, he rushed out. The car shook violently and the exhaust pipe let out an explosive sound. The rear of the car dragged out a long trail of white smoke like a jet. At this moment, The roar of the GTR's engine drowned out the exclamations of the audience and all the other vehicles that were roaring and charging forward. Simple Plan's Take My Hand sounded in Chen Guang's ear. The Mat GTR transformed into a dragon, drifting like the wind on the straight road as it roared forward. This lunatic. The moment he took off, he used the nitrogen acceleration. A complete lunatic. Lu Fei's body went limp and she sat on the ground, staring blankly at everything that was happening on the giant screen. Not only was Lu Fei stunned, but the exclamations of the people at the halfway point of the track were also coming one after another. Although the NOS system had been famous for a long time, it had always been used in straight-line acceleration races. There had never been anyone like this guy who turned on the NOS system at the corner of a cliff. Hiss. Thousands of kilometers away, in Zhuo Jingxi's office in the Jianhuan school building, Lin Jingwei's gasps did not stop for even a second. He widened his eyes and muttered, "This lunatic, is he trying to scare me to death? What's wrong? What's going on?" He used the liquid nitrogen to accelerate at the corner. I've seen a reckless racer do this before. 30 seconds later, that guy and his car were smashed into powder on the 8-lane road in Yanjing. Brother Guang, this guy. With just a brief explanation from Lin Jingwei, the others knew how dangerous it was. If there was someone by Qin Guang's side, everyone would probably stop him. But there were no ifs in this world, so no one could stop him from charging forward. Qin Guang's enemy had always been him. Even Diesel and Schroeder, who were already at the front, could not stop him for more than half the track. When Qin Guang's car turned into a stream of light and passed by the two of them, he had not even reached the bottom of the slope. But he still did not stop his crazy actions, and the music in the car changed from Take My Hand to The Phoenix by Fall Out Boy. The GTR, which was clearly painted with black matte paint, was extremely dazzling at this moment. Everyone could see that this guy was trying to break a new record. He wanted to create an unprecedented record that belonged only to him in this race. The arc-shaped black lightning left his legend at every corner of the track. It was so strange that ordinary people could not understand the terrifying high-speed corners, as if it was mocking all the golden rules that all racers believed in. At this moment, Lu Fei finally understood why Qin Guang said that this was the last time he raced in his life, and also why he said that this was the most gorgeous racing he had ever seen in his life. No one could stop him. No one could get close. Even looking up at it would make one's head spin. He had never regarded anyone as an opponent from the very beginning. Today he didn't want to beat anyone else, he just wanted to keep beating himself. After today, no one in this world would dare to challenge him in the field of racing. He wanted to use his world-shocking talent to leave a thick and heavy stroke in this world that could not be erased. The hot blood of a racer finally surged in his heart, and he defeated his previous worries. At this moment, Lu Fei understood Qin Guang's loneliness in his invincibility. She stood up fiercely and raised her hands high. Her face was flushed and her eyes were bloodshot. Facing the huge screen, she screamed in a shrill voice, "Charge!" Diesel, Schroeder, Dragon King, Wupan Junyao, Falanti, Speed and Felix, these 7 people had already stopped racing forward. Instead, they parked their cars in the parking lot halfway along the track, and turned their heads to look at the GTR that had turned into a streak of light and shadow on the mountain road. His exhaust continuously spewed out flames, and the sound of his throttle could be heard throughout the entire mountain. It was so fast that it was incomprehensible. The natural moat had become a passageway, and the curve seemed to have been pulled into a straight line by him. As expected, he has never regarded us as opponents. What he wants to surpass is the limit of human beings. Dragon King finally spoke, and there was no longer any unwillingness in his voice, only worship. Qin Guang couldn't describe his current mood. He had even completely forgotten the purpose of this trip. He only coldly opened his eyes wide, staring at the rapidly retreating mountain wall and guardrail, as well as the road that seemed to have become a part of his body. Fast. Even faster. Faster than the limit. I want to reach my limit, reach the limit of this car, reach the limit of this track, reach the limit of this world. 6 minutes and 8 seconds. His average speed was 175.99. Chapter 263. When Qin Guang's car stopped more than 300 meters behind the finish line, smoke billowing out of it, he rushed out of the car in a disheveled state. The 2 numbers were slapped hard on the huge screen. This was a speed that most people on the planet could not run at on the highway, but he had left it on the mountain track. Wang Qing's GTR, which was worth tens of millions, was scrapped. Qin Guang only had time to save his heavenly holy grail and mobile phone before he watched the billowing smoke from the engine compartment turn into a monstrous fire. The searchlight on the helicopter shone directly on Qin Guang's body, and the high-speed camera gradually zoomed in from a distance. On the screen, Qin Guang's figure standing next to the burning GTR grew larger and larger until the camera finally stopped on his V-shaped special agent mask. Qin Guang turned his head and looked at the camera in the sky. For some reason, the corner of his mouth curled up into a smile. He then stretched out his left hand and made an OK gesture. The more than 100,000 spectators were jubilant. His car is gone. There's no need for the next race. We admit defeat, Schroeder said with a smile. He shook his head over and over again with a look of relief on his face. If I wasn't the only son in my family, I would really want to become a woman and marry him. Wu Pan Junyao said. The Dragon King had already turned around and left. His era was completely over. No, the era of all racing was over. From today onwards, all the racing people in the world would forever live in the shadow of this man. In addition, the so-called world's top racers in formal competitions would not be spared. Lu Fei was already sitting in the third helicopter provided by the organizing committee. She just wanted to get to the parking lot at the finish line as soon as possible. On the other side, Qin Guang went alone to the rest area provided by the organizing committee. Even though the bodyguards sent by Uncle Qing had not yet approached and the security personnel of the organizing committee were on their way, none of the fans tried to touch his mask. They even involuntarily moved aside as he walked forward. These people's feelings were extremely complicated. They could not tell whether it was fear or admiration, just like in the legends when humans saw God for the first time. The two emotions of respect and fear mixed together. This was called awe. Congratulations. From today onwards, you are the 11th king of cars in this world. The organizer of the Hong Kong car gambling competition, the middle-aged Chinese, stood in front of Qin Guang with a proud smile and said, "Did the others withdraw from the competition?" Qin Guang raised his eyelids and asked. The middle-aged Chinese man nodded. Yes. Qin Guang smiled. It's pretty good. However, I have to correct you. I'm not the 11th racing king. I'm the one and only racing god. That's right. You are the god of racing. Let's cheer together. Racing god. The great god of racing. The unsurpassable racing god. The middle-aged Chinese man was taken aback at first, but he quickly reacted and shouted loudly. Speed god. The great god of racing. In the 4 parking lots of the half-hill racetrack, 120,000 people screamed in unison. Lu Fei, who was sitting in the helicopter passing through the parking lot, smiled brightly. She also shouted along with the middle-aged Chinese man on the screen. Although I really want to say that this guy is shameless, I still have to shout, Racing God. Lin Jingwei slammed the table. Not going to Xiangjiang with him was the biggest mistake of my life. Listening to the tsunami-like cheers that resounded through the entire mountain, the smile on Qin Guang's face became brighter and brighter. Even the V-shaped special agent mask couldn't hide his joy. A total cash prize of 34 million. 12 top-notch luxury cars with an average value of more than 10 million. 2 million euros from Renault. Got it. It was easy to say, but if he hadn't stepped onto this stage at the right time, how could he have gotten it if he really risked his life and galloped to his heart's content? Happy. Let the old man drink some water to calm himself down. Kid. Congratulations. At this moment, Lu Li's voice suddenly sounded in his heart, pulling Qin Guang from the dreamlike state of mind of the racing god into an even more dreamy situation. When Qin Guang came back to his senses, he had already appeared in the world in the cup. Caught off guard by Lu Li, Qin Guang jumped back fiercely while covering his face with his hands, making a defensive posture. He shouted, "Let's talk nicely. Don't touch me. For the sake of our friendship." After waiting for a short while and seeing no movement, Qin Guang felt at ease. He recalled the images of this woman appearing in his mind several times before. It seemed that she had not put on any clothes so far and was completely wrapped in the white mist. Yes, this woman was still naked. It was a sure win. Don't panic. Then why was I pulled in this time? Qin Guang's mind turned quickly and he suddenly reacted and exclaimed, "No way?" The The world of punishment is coming? So fast. Why don't you give me a break? Lu Li's figure gradually condensed in front of him. Sure enough, she was still wrapped in the thick white mist and only her head was exposed. She glared at Qin Guang angrily. Can't you be a little more brave? Look at your cowardly look, I really don't want to talk to you. Not the world of punishment. Qin Guang was relieved. Then what was it? Did this woman miss me? Did she fall in love with me? To be honest, although she was indeed so beautiful that she did not look like a woman in the mortal world, like a fairy. Well, she was the goddess empress, but at her age the old man always felt a little bit like being gnawed by a fossil cow. There was a touch of sadness in the old man's heart. Shrugging his shoulders, Qin Guang replied, Didn't I get oversensitive because of you and the realm within a cup? How can you blame me for that? Why did you drag me in all of a sudden? Lu Li blinked at Qin Guang and said as if presenting a treasure, Look around carefully, don't you find any changes? Qin Guang turned his head and looked around at the cloud-like world in the cup. He was shocked when he saw it. On the sea of clouds behind Lu Li there was actually a car parked. What the hell? Lu Li asked from behind Qin Guang. How do you feel? She was very satisfied with Qin Guang's inexplicable surprised expression. After running forward for a long time until he stood under the giant G, Qin Guang decisively went all out and ridiculed. Why the hell is the jeeter I drove outside here? And it's so big. It's at least 7 stories high. Do you want me to turn into a mutant giant who can drive this car on the sea of clouds? Aren't you bored? Why don't you knock on the wheel with your hand and touch this car? In the face of Qin Guang's crazy ridicule, Lu Li showed great patience today. She didn't make a move but still stayed in the same place and said to Qin Guang in the distance with a smile. Qin Guang turned around in confusion and kicked the wheel hard. It hurts. Chapter 264. This stupid wheel was actually as hard as a rock. After passing the test, Qin Guang pounced on the side of the wheel and touched it. It was cold to the touch and he knocked it with his finger. It was indeed a pure rock. This is a sculpture. What's the point of having such a huge sculpture? Qin Guang didn't understand. Take a closer look. Look around, look at the sea of clouds. Use your heart to feel the changes in your surroundings. Lu Li reminded him again. Only then did Qin Guang become serious. He collected his thoughts and looked around and indeed found something strange. Countless faintly discernible silk threads floated over from the endless void in the distance. They were as soft as flying cotton, like the countless tentacles of a transparent jellyfish. One end was connected to the car sculpture, and the other end extended into the endless void. On the ground, Qin Guang originally thought that it was just white fog. Only when he bent down to take a closer look did he realize that what was continuously extending up from the ground were also silk threads. If he didn't squint his eyes and look carefully, he wouldn't be able to tell at all. But once he realized the existence of these things, Qin Guang only felt goosebumps all over his body. He thought of the stinky tofu covered in white mold that had just been distributed at home. Resisting the discomfort, he reached out to fiddle with the densely packed white silk threads. His fingers brushed past them without any hindrance, as if he hadn't touched anything. When he blew out a breath, these silk threads were like silk floating in the air, swaying along with the airflow. His fingers couldn't touch them, so they were illusory. If he could move them by blowing, then they weren't completely illusory. And they definitely weren't mist. What the hell was this thing? Alright, I'll tell you a great piece of good news. You've finally fulfilled the hidden condition of the heavenly Holy Grail. When Qin Guang was almost dizzy from all this, Lu Li was finally willing to turn on the commentator mode. What hidden condition? Just from the sound of it, it sounded really powerful. What does it have to do with this stupid sculpture? Qin Guang decisively turned on the 100,000 wise mode. In the field of racing, you've become known as the strongest person on this earth. And then the third world within a cup that you experienced, the racing god training ground, would be considered complete. This huge statue is the symbol of the racing god training ground. At the same time, it has other important uses. Can you say it all at once? From now on, everyone in this world who loves racing will worship you as a god. These people's faith in you, even if they're separated by oceans, will condense invisibly to you. In order to make it easier for you to understand, let's temporarily call it the power of faith. It's just like a rootless duckweed floating outside without a place to settle down. Who is the world's fastest man? No one has ever been able to give an accurate answer to this question. Even the world's F1 legend Schumacher has lost many races. However, ever since you've proven yourself in this car racing competition, there's a well-deserved answer to this unresolved question. You don't need everyone to acknowledge you because it's an objective fact that you're the strongest. Just like the sun in the sky, no one can see it at night, but no one can deny that it's always there. That's why the ownerless power of faith that's drifting all over the place will all come to you. Become the power of the heavenly Holy Grail in me. So that's how it is. No wonder there are billions of power of faith here. According to Luli, in today's world, unless it's a primitive tribe that is especially uninformed, who wouldn't know about cars? Who can guarantee that they haven't thought about the question of who can drive faster in their lives? Even if it's just a passenger in a car, when they see their car overtaking or being overtaken by someone else, they will occasionally have a thought in their mind. Am I faster in this car or someone else's car? Have these people's thoughts become power of faith? Qin Guang looked at the power of faith on the ground with rapt attention, and very quickly saw the difference. The extremely thick power of faith was most likely provided by the audience that had witnessed him becoming the racing god today. One of the power of faith actually gave him a sense of familiarity. But what was even more ridiculous was its thickness. The thinnest of other people's power of faith was as thin as silk, but the one in front of him was as thick as a F** king thigh. Whose is this? How much do you worship me? Chapter 265. This is the power of faith of the leather-clad beauty Lu Fei who has been racing with you for the past few days. Lily explained in time, her thoughts are in it so you find it familiar. This woman has completely taken you for a god. Qin Guang was overjoyed. Then according to what you said, I can make her do anything now? Lily rolled her eyes. You can try. At least before she is freed from her racing fanatic emotions, she can't resist any of your requests. Why do you want to sleep with her? No, how could I think of such a vulgar thing? Money is fundamental. With money, what girl can't I get? I want her to make me rich. Qin Guang looked at Liuli disdainfully. You short-sighted god at the bottom of a well. Scram. Idiot. Destined to be alone. What the hell do you know? Qin Guang cursed and found another one which was actually about the same thickness as Lu Fei's. Who the F***ck is this? That damn sissy from Thailand, Wu Panjuanyao's. What the F***ck? No wonder that damn sissy kept wandering around me before I drank the water. No kidding, the old man began to panic. I must stay away from this guy later. There was also a very thick power of faith. Liuli didn't explain further, but Qin Guang didn't need to think to know that these must be provided by the audience. In addition, there was a relatively thick power of faith. Qin Guang speculated that it might be from some professional racers or racing-related people. Racers who like to watch racing programs must have a much stronger power of faith than ordinary people. As for the largest quantity of silk and even the nano-level below silk, it must be the world's most common people. Can this power of faith be upgraded? How about I go and participate in some world-class competition? Lily shook her head. No, when the racing god training field was perfected, the power of faith was already fixed. No matter how you display your ability, it will be of no use. Kieske, you don't even have this little ability to upgrade and you call yourself a divine artifact. You're really weak. Qin Guang expressed his disdain. Do you think the world in a cup is a cabbage in your house? You can do whatever you want. It involves profound godly power and laws that even I don't understand. Don't be fooled by the fact that it's just a grand perfection stage driving god training ground. If a mortal god from the god realm could comprehend the changes that happened in that instant, they would instantly rise by countless levels, reaching the heavens in a single step. It can almost reach the level of a god emperor. You bastard, you're still pretending to be innocent after getting a bargain. Qin Guang chuckled. Alright. It's fine if I can't level up. Anyway, other than racing, the English I learned in the Sea of Sudden, my Dota and pencil sharpening skills are also very good. If I can be recognized as the best in the world, I can also have that so-called faith energy, right? Luli nodded. Indeed. Every world in a cup is divided into two parts. The first part is when you complete the test in the world in a cup. The second part is when you gain recognition in the real world and obtain the power of faith from others who worship you as a god. Qin Guang sighed heavily. Why did you only tell me such an important thing now? If I knew earlier, I would have gone to play professional Dota. I already said it's a hidden condition. Because of the restrictions of the Heavenly Holy Grail, I couldn't take the initiative to tell you. When the Heavenly Holy Grail chooses a savior, it wouldn't want someone who has no ambition. This is also a test for you. You have to first prove your ambition before the Heavenly Holy Grail will truly recognize you. If you have to fight for everything when others force you to do it, then what's the use of having you? You have to have your own subjective initiative. Now, I'm very happy to tell you that you've passed. Damn, she's even subjective initiative now. How many things has this woman seen recently that she shouldn't have? Could a god emperor be brainwashed by Marxism-Leninism? Damn, if such a thing really happened, Marx in the underworld would also die without regrets. With a rough idea in his heart, Qin Guang asked again. In the past, I've read in some fantasy novels that if a person wants to become a god, they must gather the power of faith to achieve godhood. The so-called power of faith in the Heavenly Holy Grail sounds the same as the power of faith in those novels, right? Yuli shook her head. You believe in those nonsense? You can become a god just by gathering some believers? Then do you think that those Sakymunis and Jesus Christ in your world have really become gods? Don't tell me they haven't. Lily laughed and shook her head. If they're dead, then they're dead. How can the dead become gods? The reason why I said it's the power of faith is just to make it easier for you to understand. It's not as simple as the so-called power of faith in those nonsense novels that you've read. You can understand it as everyone in this world has an invisible spiritual connection with the Heavenly Holy Grail. The thoughts in these people's minds can become the power that the Heavenly Holy Grail transforms. So, Earthlings are so powerful. They're that powerful. Then the universe is so big. Why aren't there aliens who worship me? I'm not convinced. I want extraterrestrial fans too. I'm not happy with only a few billion fans. Little brat, you're quite creative. If there's really some unlucky extraterrestrial that accidentally comes to Earth and is within the radiation range of the Heavenly Holy Grail, it will indeed provide you with the power of faith. Qin Guang spread his hands. What you mean is that a dignified artifact's radiation range is only the size of Earth. So weak, okay? As for how big the universe is, Hawking will tell you. Shut up. Isn't this because you're too much of a scammer? If you can upgrade the Heavenly Holy Grail to the 9th level of Beyond Heaven, of course you can envelop this whatever universe. What I gave you is an artifact that can grow. But you're still in the novice village of Jianling Tian. A generation of artifact in your hands is a crude wooden stick with an attack power of 1 to 2. You have the cheek to say that it's weak? The 9th level of Beyond Heaven. Qin Guang rolled his eyes again. Another lifetime series. After finally clarifying the matter, Qin Guang changed the topic. By the way, can we change the statue? I'm a dignified Chinese after all. This time it was Wang Qing who gave me the GTR. It's not like I chose it myself. It won't be good if this gets out, right? Lily snapped her fingers. Regarding the appearance, you have two choices. One is the Alto U in the Racing God training ground. The other is the GTR you drive when you're at the perfect level. Which one do you want? The Alto. I have feelings for the Alto. Anyway, it's just for show. Lily nodded. As you wish. Before she finished speaking, the originally cool God of War GTR statue instantly turned into a 7-story tall Alto. Qin Guang looked at the new statue and nodded in satisfaction. Not bad, it has the effect of being old. The degree of restoration is really high. Even the cracks on the headlight glass look so realistic. So this was how the Alto looked from the outside. Thinking back to when he drove this crappy thing to 400 kilometers per hour, it was really touching. Going around to the side to take a look, Qin Guang exclaimed, "Damn it! The degree of restoration is so high. Can't you give me a whole car? This is still a F***king half a car. I can't accept this style. I'll change back to the GTR. Lily, sorry, you only have one chance to choose. There's no other way." Qin Guang turned his head to look at the half Alto for a long time. Thinking about it, the artistic feel of a half car is much better than a new sports car. It's not unacceptable. The AQ spirit had always been so useful. Chapter 266. Actually, Qin Guang was a bit puzzled. According to Azure, there were 3,000 worlds in the Holy Grail, and it was one of the top 10 godly weapons in the Endless God realm. The world that Earth was in was just the weakest of the weakest worlds under the Endless God realm. Why was the so-called power of faith in the minds of some mortals able to accelerate the operation of the heavenly Holy Grail? Earthlings were actually so awesome. I've always felt that Earthlings were an inferior race with backward technology in the universe. My worldview has been flipped upside down. Speaking of which, from what Azure said, there really are aliens in the universe. I actually know such a big secret. So humans aren't alone. Qin Guang fell into a reverie. This feeling of suddenly finding a companion was pretty good. Am I finally going to be the first man in the world to verify the existence of aliens? You ignorant wretches. My God Emperor said. There really are aliens. I'll go get a Nobel Prize in biology. That's what I decided. Forget it, no matter what Azure said was great news. I really have to think about how to prove the other 3 abilities. God of English? Okay, pretend I didn't think about it. Can I prove something like this? Someone said Li Yong? I only have 2 words, hee. God of pencil sharpening? This feeling is barely possible. I'll find a chance to go on TV, participate in Guinness or something, and perform my pencil sharpening skills in front of everyone. But there aren't many non-humans in this world that can worship the god of pencil sharpening, right? When the time comes, the input and output might not be proportional. After expending so much effort, he only managed to attract the power of faith from a few idiots. This was too depressing. I'll bet 50 cents that there are no more than 10,000 people in this world who will think about who is the best man at sharpening pencils. 1,000? There should be at least 100. I'm not very confident either. Just thinking about it makes me sad. Dota level. It's time to stand up and save Sean's glory. My mission is calling. Dota isn't just a game that exists alone. Although dogs and pigs are irreconcilable, if I can prove my undeniable dominance in the field of Dota, a large number of people will more or less acknowledge the fact that I'm the strongest esports player in history. Then should I buy a team or build one myself? Just thinking about it makes me excited. After all, I already have hundreds of millions in assets. Just as Qin Guang was letting his imagination run wild, he suddenly realized something. Danglua. *CK me, if I meet this nemesis, will I be able to act cool happily? Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you. Due to the completion of the Racing God training field, the power of faith is constantly pouring in, and the preparation of the world in a cup has been greatly advanced. So, I can probably tell you in advance that the world of punishment that you want is coming soon. Qin Guang was dumbfounded. Faster thief. It won't affect my mom's surgery, right? Lily shook her head. That won't happen. The power of destiny is changing your mother's fate, so no matter how fast the realm of punishment is, it will have to wait until your mother's operation is complete. Qin Guang heaved a sigh of relief. I'm relieved. Lu Li gloomily looked at him and said, I advise you not to take it lightly. Let me tell you something in advance. This time the punishment world is beyond your imagination. Beyond my imagination? Were they going to eat him? Don't scare me. Qin Guang said as he walked in Liuli's direction. No kidding, he had been scared by Liuli's alarmist talk. Liuli looked at him with a mischievous smile. I'm not scaring you, it's a big surprise. Then you have to help me. By the way, didn't you say that the power of faith can replenish your divine power? You haven't even put on that lustrous feather robe, so where did your divine power go? Do you also need to consume divine power to surf the internet? Qin Guang finally realized that something was wrong. As he spoke, he calmly continued to approach Liuli. From the moment he had entered the world in a cup until now, this woman had only been facing him. Apart from that, she had been moving in a small area, as if she was deliberately hiding something behind her. On the other side, Liuli's face was red, as if her secret had been seen through. She was thinking about how to fool Qin Guang. Suddenly, Qin Guang took a step forward and rushed to her side. He took another step forward and turned his head to look behind Liuli. Faster thief. What the *CK am I seeing? A computer? And it's a top-notch water cooling mod set. Am I *King seeing things? Sennhei HD 800 headphones. Berry 2 earphones. Asus Faith keyboard and mouse set. Huiwei M3 deluxe set. *CK, this is inhumanly rich. Speaking of which, isn't this the world in a cup? Why the hell am I seeing these strange things? Qin Guang continued sprinting forward and finally stood behind Liuli before she could react. Then he turned his head around and looked back. 2 white buttocks. Smooth, streamlined, fair back, and those 2 long legs. Oh my god. How perfect. I understand now. No wonder this woman kept complaining that she didn't have enough spiritual energy and couldn't recover. She actually spent that precious divine power on a bunch of luxurious suits. Not only that, she could only produce half of the white fog on her body. Even the fried eggs were only half cooked. Even if she had to save and save, she had to ensure that she could go online. What kind of stubborn netizens are these? Bastard. Lily finally realized that she was exposed and screamed. Before she finished speaking, Qin Guang only felt a fist coming from afar and instantly blasted in front of him. *CK, this punch was worth it. After being blasted into the air by the fist, Qin Guang returned to the modern world. At this time the cup was still by his mouth and it seemed that less than 1 second had passed in the outside world. When he opened his eyes he saw Wu Pan Junyao swaying around him. Qin Guang quietly stretched out a foot and tripped this butterfly-like buddy's foot. The handsome and beautiful dark knight temptress of the generation, Mr. Wu Pan Junyao, who was one of the top 10 underground car kings in the world, screamed and fell off the podium. This damn sissy worships me so much. *CK, this guy's power of faith seems to be a bit thicker than Lu Fei's. How terrifying. The following car auction and the big gift from Renault, Qin Guang didn't have much interest in it. He left it all to Lu Fei to handle. When he thought of the unimaginable punishment realm that Lily said at the end, he really felt a little uneasy. There was no need to say more about the power of fate. It forcibly solved the problem of the kidney source on the spot. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was a miracle. Then there was no need to think about how terrifying the punishment realm would be. What was even more helpless was that until now, Lily hadn't revealed any information. Forcibly creating a sense of mystery, forcibly preventing people from living a peaceful life. Chapter 267. The auction of a total of 12 cars was extraordinarily smooth. In less than half an hour, all of them were swept clean on the spot. Schroeder, Diesel and the others lost everything, but these car kings all wanted to buy their cars back, and the prices they offered were more straightforward than the last. The rich and overbearing Frant even doubled the price of his car. The other car kings did not encounter such a crazy competition like Frant, and at most they only raised the original price by 1.5 times. They bought their cars back on the one hand because they were all their favorite things, and on the other hand, they felt that this car had witnessed the birth of a generation's god of racing, and it had an extraordinary commemorative significance. In addition, Qin Guang's act of becoming a god also caused the price of the previous 3 cars to soar. All in all, the 12 cars that participated in the auction sold for an average price of 13 million yuan. A total of 156 million yuan was entered into the account. Coupled with the 2 million euros sent by Renault, which was equivalent to 14.69 million yuan, and the total prize money of the competition of 34 million yuan, Qin Guang's crazy act of becoming a god instantly exploded, earning 246.69 million yuan. It was more than twice as much as the 70 million that Lu Fei had originally thought. Qin Guang became a rich man overnight, and he was not inferior to those who bought the lottery and won the jackpot. Qin Guang did not stay here to continue to enjoy the worship of others. It was meaningless. Anyway, no matter how much he shouted, the power of faith that could be obtained from the heavenly Holy Grail had already been fixed. At this time it was already 9:30 in the evening, and the last flight from Xiangjiang to Wujing was at 10:40, so he had to rush to the airport as soon as possible. It was indeed worry-free to have Lu Fei's help in everything. Long before the start of the competition, she had found the person in charge of the Asia-Pacific region of the UBS Bank. When the competition ended and the auction began, Qin Guang's personal UBS account was completely settled. Excluding the 7 million yuan that had been transferred before, the 197.69 million yuan in Qin Guang's bank card was all deposited on the spot. Qin Guang's hand trembled again, and he decisively transferred 10 million to Wang Qing, leaving only 187.69 million on the card. Even if he burned someone else's car into an iron shell, the insurance company wouldn't pay for it. Since the money in his hands was still warm, he wouldn't feel the heartache if he paid for it. It was better to return it quickly. In addition, UBS was known as the safest personal bank in the world, but Qin Guang always had a feeling that his money had been targeted by Lu Li. God knows what this emperor god was planning to do, and he felt completely insecure. Even the safest Swiss bank would not be able to deal with Azure's spying. Alas, when he thought of Lioli and looked down at the UBS black card in his hand, Qin Guang really couldn't feel happy at all. God bless me, don't let me lose all of my money. That's not right either. The heavens might not be as influential as Lioli. They might not be able to protect me, so I felt sorry for myself. If I remember correctly, when I'm using my phone, that woman can only watch videos, chat and browse Weibo to read articles, right? That computer must have been freshly made by her using the power of faith. While talking to me, she's secretly playing with her computer. She's quite hardworking. Speaking of which, when I glanced at the monitor just now, it seemed to be a very familiar game interface. It vaguely looked like Dota 2. Faster see. This woman, she just made a computer and she's already using my phone's 4G to connect to Dota 2. I'm done for. A serious internet addict and a super addicted gamer wants to be my financial butler? My waist hurts so much. Forget it. Because of Lioli, the old man became a god and became a millionaire. Then because of her, he would lose everything. That was not something she could not accept. But thinking about it, if I worked myself to death only to end up empty-handed, how can I stop her? How can I stop her? Sitting in the car on the way to the airport, Qin Guang's heart was filled with melancholy. He didn't feel the joy of making a fortune, only endless pain in his balls. When he thought about the upcoming punishment realm, Qin Guang felt even more uneasy. Seeing his troubled look, Lu Fei said, "What's wrong? Are you worried about your mother's surgery?" Qin Guang sighed in his heart again. That's right, this was the third thing, and it was also the thing that he felt the most uneasy about. No matter how confident he seemed on the surface, the kidney transplant was a major surgery among major surgeries. Before the dust settled, it was impossible for him to calm down. He had been out for 5 days and he didn't know if his father had been so worried that he had a nervous breakdown. His mother hadn't seen him for 5 days in a row, and the surgery was approaching, so she must be even more uneasy. Although he had been on the phone often, he only reported the good news and nothing bad. His parents also said that their health was improving, and the success rate of the surgery was almost 100%. Tang Ying was also full of good news. But after all, he didn't see it with his own eyes, so he couldn't calm down. Fortunately, I can finally go back. I'll arrive in Beijing tomorrow afternoon, and then I'll give them a big surprise. Qin Guang nodded and said, "Yeah." Lu Fei suddenly sighed and hugged him from the side. She said, "Don't put too much pressure on yourself, there's no point in worrying. You have to believe in the current medical technology. Since there's no problem with the kidney, the surgery has a high chance of success. I heard that you found the famous Professor Lu." Qin Guang nodded and said, "That's him. Then it's in the bag. Come on, give me a smile." Lu Fei said as she held Qin Guang's face with both hands and forced him to look at her. Squeezing out a smile on Qin Guang's face, Lu Fei abruptly moved her face over and gave a peck on his lips. Shortly after, she let go and pointed at Qin Guang, who had a blushing face, and giggled. Originally, she planned to resolve the last regret in her heart today. However, it seemed like Qin Guang didn't really realize this. At the same time, it was obvious that he was most worried about his mother's condition. As the saying went, a mother worried about her son. At this moment, Qin Guang's family wasn't the only one worrying about him. He himself had flown a few thousand miles and changed his fate with his insane actions. At the same time, he also changed the fate of his family. Now that he had just escaped from the emotional turmoil, it was normal for him to worry about his mother, who was thousands of miles away. No matter how much money one had, it couldn't be compared to the life of one's parents. If money was gone, one could earn it back. If money couldn't be earned back, one could earn enough to spend. However, if the life of one's loved one was gone, even if one bought half of the world, one couldn't buy the life of one's loved one back from heaven. After laughing for a long time, Lu Fei hugged Qin Guang again and didn't say a word. These past few days she had experienced ups and downs with this big boy. She watched him appear like a comet and conquer the entire world in 5 days. All beauties loved heroes, and Lu Fei was no exception. Not to mention that she was a crazy racing fan, so of course she would fall in love with the world's strongest racing god. But now Lu Fei had seen through the weak side of this big boy's heart. His originally invulnerable godlike image suddenly came alive. A god who had fallen to the mortal world was much more charming than a god who stood high above. Lu Fei's strong feelings of worship, which had no foundation, gradually fell to the ground. Not only did it not weaken, it took root and sprouted. The physical distance between them didn't seem that important anymore. I just want my heart to be closer to him. There's no need to rush things between men and women. Hugging Qin Guang and feeling Qin Guang's body temperature, Lu Fei thought so. Is it comfortable to pinch? Okay, this guy's perfect image was broken again. It's okay. It's very elastic and really round. Can I put my hand in? Stinky pervert. I've really seen through you. Can't you be more mature? How could I fall in love with a loser like you? Can't we learn from the tall, rich and handsome guys on TV and play some high and mighty tricks? Qin Guang scratched his head with one hand and continued to take advantage of her with the other. I'm just thinking that I'm about to get on the plane. After I arrive in Wujing, I have to rush to the hospital. I don't have many chances, so I want to hurry. Besides, there's a very important part missing today. Lu Fei blushed and looked at him with a burning gaze. Can you be more shameless? This car has a lot of space. Why don't we shake it on the road? That's possible. You really King believed it. I'll strangle you to death. Rubber machine gun. Hit 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 hit. I'll kill you. Chapter 268. Lu Fei's rampage continued until they were almost at the airport. It seemed that she also knew that after returning to Wujing, she could no longer play with Qin Guang as she did now. When Lu Fei got out of the car, her face was red. After taking 2 steps, her legs became weak and she almost fell. Qin Guang quickly supported her from the side. Be careful not to fall. Lu Fei turned around and stepped on him fiercely. It's all your fault. Qin Guang awkwardly chuckled as he felt puzzled in his heart. On the way from the mountain track to here, he didn't know what was going on. Maybe it was his super weak self-control as an old bachelor, or maybe it was Lu Fei's excessive indulgence. In short, the two of them laughed and played in the car. When Qin Guang came to his senses, his hand was already in a strange position that he shouldn't have touched. He himself was at a loss. In his impression, he was not such a daring person at all. Why did he do such a beastly thing when he was with Lu Fei? Or rather, why did he do such a thing that was worse than a beast? Because of her indulgence, I became unscrupulous and awakened courage and courage? From now on, I will embark on the road of a generation of dirty kings? After thinking about it, no. I feel that I haven't changed. What was I thinking at that time? Was I testing her tolerance little by little and then a little bit more? Seems like it. Qin Guang had never been a saint. In the face of Lu Fei's indulgence and deliberate seduction, he couldn't resist at all. Along the way, Lu Fei was also enchanted. She thought that there was a partition between the front and back seats of the business car arranged by Uncle Cheng. Even if the back seat was noisy, the driver in the front seat would not know anything, so she was even more presumptuous. In this enclosed space, it was not easy for the two people who had poor self-control not to take the last step. However, when the two of them got out of the car together and were blown by the cold wind outside, their minds suddenly became sober. Recalling what had happened in the car, the woman felt a little embarrassed, but the man was secretly worried that he had gone too far and would lose a close friend like Lu Fei. Qin Guang was a little scared. He didn't understand women very well, and he didn't know if he and Lu Fei were friends or something else. Although she admires my driving skills, her other identity is that of a strong woman managing a large company. She won't always be my brainless fan, right? In the future, will she also realize that something is wrong and secretly decide to distance herself from me in the future? Qin Guang began to worry about personal gains and losses again. He always felt that everything that had happened in the past few days was too surreal. Whether it was the 180 million in his UBS account or the inexplicable strange relationship between him and Lu Fei, they were all so strange. As he was about to board the plane back to Wujing, these problems and situations suddenly rushed into his head, making him feel at a loss, and his brain wasn't enough. These days, Lu Fei put down her own affairs and did her best to help him. Qin Guang certainly knew her kindness and was grateful to her. But why did it become like this unknowingly? He didn't want to lose such a forthright and generous friend like Lu Fei, who could help him do everything properly, but he couldn't control his wretched heart as an old virgin. Of course, he knew that for a girl, his performance seemed to be completely unworthy of being a good friend, and he should be kept at a respectful distance. But knowing in his heart didn't mean that he could control himself. I'm really a terrible friend. What are you thinking about? As the two of them walked into the airport, Lu Fei asked when she noticed Qin Guang's absent-minded expression. Qin Guang took a deep breath. Yes. Lu Fei suddenly covered his mouth with her hand. Do you want to say sorry to me? Qin Guang's face turned red and he nodded slightly. Lu Fei slapped him hard on the shoulder. Hey. It's just a small matter. Is it worth a generation's god of racing to be so indecisive? I haven't said anything and you're already tangled up. Qin Guang was puzzled. You're not angry? Lu Fei rolled her eyes. Are you stupid? If I'm really angry, I shouldn't be angry at you, I should be angry at myself. If I don't agree, you can still use force, right? Hey, although I've never been in a relationship, I'm not a virgin like you. Is your understanding of women in the negative? He was seen through. Qin Guang covered his face, pretending to be pretentious in the car for 10,000 years. But it couldn't change the tragic fact that he was an old bachelor. So what if I don't understand women? You've really helped me a lot these few days, but As he spoke, Qin Guang sighed slightly, and his face showed an ashamed expression and he felt a little regretful. Lu Fei blinked at him and her eyes became brighter. Until now, she suddenly realized that this god of racing that she had always admired was actually a university student in his 20s. And he was younger than her by more than 4 years. Looks like my seducing him has left a shadow in his heart. No, I have to cure him. She patted Qin Guang's head again. What nonsense are you thinking about? Am I such a fussy person? I understand your mentality. I know you treat me as a real friend and you care about me a lot. You're afraid that I'll alienate you because of this, right? Qin Guang nodded. Yeah. You're looking down on me. If you weren't younger than me by more than 4 years, I would definitely be angry if you dared to think like this. However, seeing that you're still a little brother, I understand your thoughts. I'm also too lazy to promise you anything. Anyway, a little boy like you just likes to think nonsense. Even if I say it, you'll feel that it's hard to fathom a person's mind. Maybe if I say this today, I won't think the same tomorrow or something. You'll also think that if I say that the things that happened these few days are over, and we'll just be normal friends from now on, and that men and women shouldn't touch each other, you'll be disappointed again. It's not easy to find a great beauty that I can take advantage of, and she's gone just like that. My heart hurts. Lu Fei was indeed Lu Fei. Her words completely exposed Qin Guang's current mentality. Qin Guang's mouth was wide open, and he felt like he had been completely seen through. What the f***c? Lu Fei suddenly laughed and she rocked back and forth with laughter. You're really cute and innocent. Why don't you think about what kind of person I am? Who can you deceive with your little tricks? She realized that she was liking this guy more and more. Qin Guang sighed. I feel so weak. I'm not a match for you at all. Chapter 269. Lu Fei shook her head. Let me tell you a piece of good news. I don't hate the weak you. Qin Guang was overjoyed. Doesn't that mean I can still in your dreams? In the future, it won't be so easy for you to take advantage of me when I return to Wujing. But it's not like there's no chance at all. It depends on your performance. Well, it also depends on my mood. But if you really want to hit on me, I advise you to give up. I'm 4 years older than you. Also, don't think that you're very powerful with a net worth of 100 million. You're far from it. Of course, I plan to get married when I'm 35. While I'm still young, I can accompany you for a few more years. I'm telling you in advance, if I meet someone I like before, you'll have to accept your fate. Qin Guang began to curse in his heart. He cursed that Lu Fei would never meet a suitable man. Are you cursing me? Do you want to keep eating for free? Faster, thief. I've been seen through again. Since you're so cute, I'll tell you a piece of news. What? Originally, I really wanted to let you eat tonight, but you insisted on going back to Wujing. Of course, I fully understand your feelings. So you see, I waited until I got on the plane to tell you this. I didn't want you to be in a dilemma. Look how considerate I am. Qin Guang punched his heart hard and said with a sad face, you might as well not tell me at all. That's more considerate. Finally, the plane took off with a bang, bringing the heartbroken Qin Guang to Wujing City. On the other side, an entire hour had passed. Lin Jingwei and the others who stayed in front of the computer still couldn't calm down. Under everyone's request, Lin Jingwei pressed the replay button again and again. On the computer screen, the scene of the Matt GTR speeding away was replayed again and again. They had seen it 5 or 6 times, but every time it was replayed, everyone's heart would be in their throat. His speed was too fast, as if he would smash into the edge of the road at any moment. Finally, Gaoya grabbed the mouse and pressed the pause button. Okay, I'm done. If I keep watching this madman's competition, Lil Sun's brain is going to be deprived of blood. Zhuo Jingxi, who was at the side, supported Sun Xiaoxuan's limp body. She thought about how Gaoya, a sharp girl, would often mention Sun Xiaoxuan's feelings for Qin Guang in front of her. Zhuo Jingxi sighed slightly. In the end, her students still noticed something was amiss. Zhuo Jingxi looked at the computer monitor again. In the paused image, there was only a black shadow in the driver's seat of the matte GTR. But for some reason, Zhuo Jingxi seemed to be able to sense the determination and madness in the black shadow's eyes through time and space. This guy really didn't have it easy. Brother Guang, now that you've earned so much money, you're going to turn from a salted fish into a rich man, right? When he comes back, we have to eat from the rich. Just at this time, Lady Whitesnake suddenly came up with such a sentence. Everyone turned to look at him. Why did this guy's brain circuit seem to be different from everyone else's? Why are you guys looking at me like that? Don't you think what I said makes sense? Lin Jingwei punched him. You're right, but I still feel like something's wrong. You're not paying attention to the same thing as us. Sun Xiaoxuan, who was at the side, didn't say a word. She was happy for Qin Guang. No matter how dangerous it seemed, he had defeated everyone, including himself. But in her heart, she was disappointed for herself. From now on, Qin Guang was no longer the broke teenager who was so poor that he had to work online to support his family. Just as Bai Nyangzi said, Qin Guang was now rich. His personal assets were close to 200 million. What kind of concept was that? Sun Xiaoxuan, who came from an ordinary family, couldn't imagine it at all. In fact, Sun Xiaoxuan's family wasn't poor. In her hometown Jiangnan province Wumian City, they were definitely above the middle class. Her father, Sun Quan, was a construction engineer with an annual income of more than 300,000. So when Qin Guang compensated Pan Jiang with more than 10,000 yuan in medical fees because of her, she felt very bad and wanted to immediately return the money to Qin Guang. 10,000 yuan wasn't a big deal for her, but Qin Guang's net worth was close to 200 million. Her father couldn't even make that much money after working for 600 years. Thinking of that number, her mind went blank. Different from Lin Jingwei, Bai Nyangzi, Xiong Jinka or Gaoya. These people all treated Qin Guang as a brother or a classmate, but Sun Xiaoxuan was completely different from them. All this time, Sun Xiaoxuan had been thinking about finding a suitable opportunity to confess to Qin Guang. Then after graduation she could stay with him in Wujing. If he was willing, she could also let him go to Wumian City with her. Then her family could find some connections to get them a job in the environmental protection system of Wumian City. Then they could get married and have children together. Slowly they could raise their children and grow old together. Slowly they could watch their children grow up, get married and have children. Then they could help their children take care of their grandchildren. She hoped that she could live healthily until she was 80 or 90 years old so that she could take care of him when he was too old to walk and needed someone to take care of him. What's more, he didn't want to grow old before him because if he died first he would become an old man and live alone in the world. From the moment she fell in love with Qin Guang, Sun Xiaoxuan's belief had been firm. She just couldn't muster up the courage to confess, so she was waiting for the right opportunity. But why did he suddenly become a rich man of 200 million yuan? Sun Xiaoxuan was still in a daze until Gaoya walked with her back to the girls' dorm. Xiaoxuan, what's wrong? Aren't you happy that Qin Guang won? Gaoya noticed her abnormality and poked Sun Xiaoxuan's shoulder. Sun Xiaoxuan took a deep breath and said, Gaoya, am I not good enough for Qin Guang? Gaoya was stunned and said, what's wrong with you, little girl? You're so pretty. How can you not be good enough for him? Sun Xiaoxuan shook her head. The lady in the leather suit who helped him auction the car is also beautiful. Her figure is much better than mine. I'm thin and short and she's tall and full. That sister can still help him, but I can't help him at all. Gaoya grabbed her and said, if you don't make things clear today, I can't let you go back to the dorm. I know you like him, but you can't put yourself too low. Qin Guang is good, but you're not bad either, right? You're not thin and short. You're small and cute, okay? How are you worse than that lady in the leather suit? It's just a completely different style. You don't know how many people in our class have a crush on you. Do you think Pan Jiang is the only one? It's just that the others know they can't compete with Qin Guang, so they keep it to themselves. But Sun Xiaoxuan was a little shaky. Chapter 270. Gaoya rolled her eyes again. I know what you're trying to say. But now that Qin Guang has suddenly become so rich, you're under pressure. You used to think that you could help him with your circumstances, but now you can't help him at all. You're going to be a burden, so you're starting to feel inferior and feel sorry for yourself, right? Sun Xiaoxuan turned her head away slightly and nodded lightly. Gaoya had seen through her. That's why I said you're silly. Think about it. When Qin Guang was so poor that he had to freeload off others, did you look down on him? Well, then what do you like about him? Sun Xiaoxuan thought about it and wanted to say something, but she couldn't. I don't know. I just like him. That's right. You like him for who he is. It doesn't matter if he's rich or poor. From another perspective, Qin Guang isn't completely uninterested in you, right? You can't have no confidence in yourself, can you? Sun Xiaoxuan thought about it again and blushed. He probably likes me a little too. Gaoya shrugged. That's it. Since you like him so much, can you have some confidence in Qin Guang? As long as you like each other, it doesn't matter how much money he has. When a man and a woman are together, it's about feelings, not money. As long as they really like each other, money doesn't matter. There's no such thing as being worthy or not. If Qin Guang really becomes a different person because he's rich and doesn't like you anymore, do you really need to like that kind of person? Is there a need to keep thinking about her? Are you in a hurry to stick your warm face to a cold butt? Sun Xiaoxuan's eyes lit up. Gaoya pushed her and said, all right, go to sleep. I don't even know how much you like him. You've been privately voted the prettiest girl in our school. Have some confidence. You're not even afraid of that one, and you're afraid of losing to someone else? Losing to me? The money I lost to Qin Guang? Sun Xiaoxuan nodded heavily. Yes. Thank you, Gaoya. What are you thanking me for? Isn't that what best friends do? Gaoya put an arm around her shoulders. What about Lin Jingwei and you? Gaoya pouted. We'll think about it when he becomes more manly. Xiao Lin is going to be infected by Nyangzi and turn into Lin Pingji. You know Lin Pingji, right? It was the one in the smiling, proud wanderer who practiced the sunflower manual. Oh no, the Bisha swordplay manual. Pure sissy 24K. Don't talk about him like that. I think he's sincere to you. The two of them whispered to each other as they went upstairs. On the other side, Zhuo Jingxi was lying on the bed, tossing and turning. But in the end, she didn't have the meticulous thoughts of a little girl like Sun Xiaoxuan. She could only laugh at herself inwardly. What am I thinking? I'm a few years older than him and I'm his teacher. How is that possible? He helped me not because he had any feelings for me but because he saw me as a friend out of a sense of justice. How can I be so dirty and make him look down on me for no reason? If it was in the past, it would have been better. But now that he's so rich, if I were to steal young grass, I would definitely become a laughing stock. I shouldn't think about all these things anymore. I should focus on my own matters first. I haven't even gotten rid of my own troubles, so what right do I have to think about these meaningless things? On the other side of Gokyo University, Wenwen was still sitting cross-legged on the rooftop of the dormitory. Second Uncle Wen appeared behind her like a ghost. Qin Guang won. Wenwen didn't open her eyes. She only responded, oh, okay, I got it. Don't you want to know how he won? I think there's something fishy going on. Second Uncle Wen said in surprise. He thought that Wenwen would stop her cultivation and stand up to ask for details. Wenwen still didn't open her eyes. I don't want to know how he won and I don't need to know. It's meaningless. I understand why you guys are suspicious of him. In fact, I don't understand the changes that happened to him. But that's not important. For me, Qin Guang is Qin Guang. The pauper Qin Guang, the racing god Qin Guang, and the very capable Qin Guang are all Qin Guang. From the day I met him, he has always been an ordinary Qin Guang. I believe in my eyes and heart. I won't believe in your random guesses. Second Uncle, don't disturb my cultivation. Sco. Second Uncle Wen's expression stagnated. Wenwen's anger seemed to faintly drive the air around her to become heavy. He helplessly shook his head and gradually disappeared. After Second Uncle left for a long time, Wenwen slowly opened her eyes. Looking at the sky in the direction of Shangjiang, she muttered to herself, "You've become even more powerful? Good. Maybe one day you'll be able to make everyone unable to ignore you. What the hell did you do behind my back? Sooner or later you'll have to confess to me. When this lady can't hold it in anymore, it'll be the time when you enjoy the Manchurian Qing's 10 great tortures." Qin Guang didn't know how many people in Wujing City were having sleepless nights because of his magnificent feat at this time. He was sleeping soundly with his head touching Lu Fei's head. Before falling asleep, he opened his eyes and looked at Lu Fei's head for a long time. He wanted to find some traces of the power of faith that was as thick as a thigh. Thinking about it carefully, a white thread as big as her head, no, it should be called a pillar of qi. It was connected to the cup in front of him. It was really terrifying. But why couldn't he find it? Why couldn't he see it? Why do you keep looking at my head? Can't you let me sleep? Lu Fei opened her eyes and glared at him fiercely. Damn it, your thick power of faith must have been mixed with water. Can you be a little more respectful to the God in your heart? Dawdle again. I'll strangle you to death. He closed his eyes and went to sleep. He didn't want to think about anything else. It's really unlucky to be on a plane with you. Every time I can only buy a transfer ticket. What a waste. The next morning at 10 o'clock, when the two of them finally sat in Lu Fei's Porsche 918, Lu Fei couldn't help but complain. Qin Guang was also confused. Maybe I have a grudge with the airline. Lu Fei rolled her eyes. Come on, people don't even want to talk to you if you don't have a platinum card, right? Should I send you back to school or to the hospital? Let me drive. It's been hard on you. I'll send you home first, then I'll take a taxi to the hospital. Qin Guang was really considerate. Lu Fei was amused. You're going to teach me real kung fu again? That's right, real kung fu at 80 kilometers per hour. From this angle, I can't imagine that you're actually a god of racing. Sitting in Qin Guang's car, Lu Fei was really bored. You don't understand real driving skills. Real top-notch skills are never learned by driving like a slave. You have to treat the car like a friend and treat it like a family. Only then can you be one with the car and your driving skills will be natural. How do you think I trained? I'll tell you the truth. It's from running the internet for a year. As Qin Guang spoke, he took out his phone and tossed it over to Lu Fei. Open up my app and see how many orders I've taken in the past year. Lu Fei opened the app suspiciously. More than 3,000 orders. Qin Guang pretended to be mysterious. That's right. On average, more than 10 orders a day. It's from this life of running the internet day after day that I've trained my skills. That day when I said I'm going to teach you real kung fu, I wasn't lying. This is my biggest secret. No one else knows about it. I'm only telling you. Don't ever let anyone else know. Tow Wei. I also want to run the internet. Didn't you say you don't want to race? It's not good for a girl to run the internet. Remember the stick I used to smash Zhong Bai's car window the first time we met? If it wasn't for that, I would have been robbed many times. Qin Guang rolled his eyes. She actually believed it. Oh, forget it. Chapter 271. Qin Guang stood outside the ward for nearly 5 minutes before he finally plucked up the courage to push the door open and enter. Seeing that he was finally back, Qin Guoli was ecstatic, but he quickly hid it. Feng Rong, on the other hand, was much calmer. She looked at him cheerfully and said, Xiao Guang, did you say thank you to your dad's comrade? I'm really sorry that you keep bothering him like this. Qin Guang replied, It's all right. Uncle is quite a nice person. That's right, Qin Guang lied to Qin Guoli, saying that his money was Jiang Yage's kept woman. Qin Guoli continued to lie to Feng Rong, saying that Qin Guang had gone to borrow money from his comrade again. It revolved around the core idea of making Feng Rong happy and the main purpose of making Qin Guoli less worried. One lie was wrapped in another, forming the main content of communication in this weird family recently. After chatting with his mother for a while, Qin Guang went downstairs to buy some fruits and flowers, then went to visit the donor's auntie in another ward. From the beginning to the end, Qin Guang did not mention a word about the other party's change of heart. Instead, he expressed his gratitude to the other party in every way, and even patted his chest to say that he would remember the other party's kindness. The gratitude fee was a total of 4 million. Qin Guoli had already paid 1 million as a deposit, and the remaining 3 million would be paid after the surgery was completed. Both parties had already signed the contract. Qin Guang did not mention the matter either. He even transferred another 100,000 from his card to the family's daughter on the spot, saying that it was for the aunt's nutrition. Qin Guang did not want to care about what happened in the past, nor did he want to be calculative about it. Right now he just wanted to comfort the family. At the same time, Qin Guang didn't care how expensive the reward was in the eyes of ordinary people, but he felt that as long as the final result was good, he could let go of any unpleasantness in the process. When he left the donor's ward, the auntie's daughter, a first-year university student in Zhongsha City, the capital of Southeast Province, followed him out of the ward. Blushing, she pulled him to the hospital corridor and whispered shyly, "Mr. Qin, I'm sorry." Looking at this pretty little girl, Qin Guang smiled and patted her on the shoulder. "What's there to apologize for? I should be the one apologizing to you. I understand what happened before and I owe you guys. No matter what, in the future your mother's kidney will grow in my mother's body and we will be relatives. You will be my sister. This is my phone number. In the future, if you come to the 5 Capital to play or if you need any help, just look for me." The girl lowered her head in shame. "Actually, this was all my idea. I thought you would scold us. I heard that you were coming back. Last night I thought for a long time to apologize to you, but I'm sorry. I'm really sorry." As the girl spoke, tears began to fall. During this time she was also under a lot of psychological pressure. The previous incident was one thing. Her mother was also a terminally ill patient, and it was the kind with no chance of survival. In front of her family she could still hold on, but now in front of Qin Guang she finally couldn't hold it anymore. Qin Guang's gentleness and generosity made the girl who had no siblings collapse. Qin Guang completely understood her feelings. Compared to her, he was actually the luckiest person. Sighing, Qin Guang reached out his hands to hold her shoulders. "It's okay, don't cry, don't be sad. Sai, I don't know how to comfort you." The girl wiped her tears and sobbed for a long time before gradually stopping. She looked up and saw that Qin Guang was still looking at her with a worried face. With red eyes, she turned her face to the side. "I'm sorry, I couldn't control my emotions." It's okay. It's good to cry to vent. Otherwise it's easy to get sick from holding it in. It's also because I'm stupid and really don't know how to comfort people. Otherwise, how could I watch you cry? No. Mr. Qin, you're a good person, really good. I don't need to be comforted. It's been so long I've thought it through." The girl continued to shake her head. "Previously, I heard from your mother that you're a freshman at Central South University of Technology. Actually, I'm also a junior. You calling me Mr. Qin? Mr. Qin sounds so weird to me." Qin Guang joked with her. "I already said that you're my sister. You can call me Qin Guang or Brother Guang. If you want, you can just call me brother." The girl blushed again, lowered her head and said, "Well, okay, Brother Guang. Right, you still don't know my name, right? I'm Fan Lingshan, you can call me Lingshan. Not you Lingshan's Lingshan. It's Fan Lingshan." The two chatted for a while, then Fan Lingshan said goodbye, turned around and went back to the ward. Just as Qin Guang was about to go back, a figure suddenly jumped out from the corner of the wall and stood in front of him. White clothes, disheveled hair just like Sadako. "Ghost." Qin Guang retaliated with a backhand slap. The female ghost slammed into the wall. Hearing the voice, it was actually Tang Ying. After a lot of effort, Dr. Tang apologized sincerely, rubbed his head and blew off the bump on his head. Finally, Dr. Tang, who had been slapped against the wall, calmed down. "You brat, be gentler. I was just joking with you, why did you have such a big reaction?" Tang Ying pushed away Qin Guang's hand, rubbing her head. She almost fainted when she slammed into the wall. "How can you blame me? Isn't it because you suddenly jumped out and scared me? You scared me to death." Qin Guang rolled his eyes. "It's because I don't have heart disease. If someone with heart disease was scared by you like this, they would directly lie on the operating table." Slapping away Qin Guang's hand, Tang Ying shook her white robe and then tied up her hair again. "Humph, to a little girl you act like a considerate big brother, but to an old doctor like me, you have this kind of attitude. How can you say this kind of thing?" Qin Guang's face turned pale. "If you're old and weak, then 99% of the women in the world are old and weak. I like what you said, forget it, I forgive you. By the way, Zhong Bai and Xiao Kai told me about your matter in Xiangjiang. In short, it's great that you can come back safely. If I knew you were going to do such a dangerous thing, I wouldn't have agreed." As Tang Ying spoke, she put her hand on Qin Guang's shoulder. Qin Guang grunted. He could hear the concern in Tang Ying's words, but he didn't take it seriously. Only those who didn't know anything would think that racing was a risk. But in fact, how could it be dangerous? It was completely beating up a child. Moreover, if he didn't prove himself through the car racing competition, God knows when he would be able to successfully trigger the hidden condition of the heavenly Holy Grail. This trip to Xiangjiang was totally worth it. Chapter 272. Qin Guang went to Tang Ying's office and sat for a long time. They talked about Feng Rong's current situation, and Tang Ying gave Qin Guang the last piece of reassurance. When Qin Guang was about to leave, he saw Tang Ying take out a pencil. "Let me sharpen it for you." 5 seconds later, a vivid miniature rose appeared in front of Tang Ying. Even the wood shavings were still floating in the air, not falling to the ground. Tang Ying was dumbfounded. "How is it? Does it look good? Does it look good? Is it cool? Do you want to learn?" Qin Guang blinked proudly. He felt good today. To prove that he was the best sharpener in the world, he had to instill this concept in the people around him. "That's right. When I get back, I'll buy a pencil and show it off to everyone I meet." Tang Ying took the rose that Qin Guang had forcefully sharpened with a pencil. Her mind was a mess and she couldn't understand how this guy did it. If she hadn't seen him holding a knife and dancing on the pencil with her own eyes, Tang Ying would have thought it was a magic prop that he had prepared in advance. Feeling that he had successfully acted cool, Qin Guang raised his eyebrows proudly. He turned around and walked out. He guessed that his dad wouldn't be able to hold it in any longer and would come out to ask him questions. When Qin Guang was far away, Tang Ying stomped her feet. "That idiot. He didn't even sharpen the pencil core for me. How am I supposed to draw?" She took out the pencil sharpener and placed it on the neck of the pencil, ready to sharpen it again. If she cut it, the rose would be gone. After a while, she didn't cut it. Instead, she carefully took out a piece of paper and wrapped the rose that Qin Guang had sharpened in 3 layers. Then she carefully put it in her bag and took out a pen to sharpen it herself. On the other side, Qin Guang was about to break down because of his dad. "Dad, Mom's going to have her surgery the day after tomorrow. Can you stop watching me? Let me go." No, your mom's surgery is important, but you can't ignore this. You're still young and really don't understand, but you can't let your guard down." Qin Guang was extremely helpless. "Your vitality recovery soup last time already caused me so much trouble. Don't come up with this kind of strange recipe again. What's wrong? It doesn't taste good?" Qin Guoli had a blank look on his face. "I've tried it myself. Although it's not as pure as the authentic lamb soup and it's a little messy, it's not that bad." "Wait, how did you know it was vitality restoring soup?" Qin Guang covered his face and thought, "Can I tell you that your son's life is in Dr. Tang's hands because of this tonic? They thought I was a patient in that area and wanted to save a good young man like me who couldn't lift weights. How much determination did he have?" What if someone found out that it wasn't the case at all and thought that we, father and son, had teamed up to play hooligans? Wouldn't that be like having mud fall into one's pants? Anyway, before Mom's surgery is over, don't ever mention this to me again. Also, I'll transfer another 4 million to your account. Dad, you decide how to use it. Do you want to pay off the court's fine or do something else?" Qin Guoli's eyes widened. His brain couldn't process all of this. "If I remember correctly, before you left, you transferred 3 million to me as a token of appreciation. Then the day before yesterday you transferred 4 million to me. Now you have 4 million again. Why do I feel like something is wrong? Is it because the RMB has depreciated recently, or have we become Vietnamese? Is this money in Vietnamese dong? Why do I feel like this money isn't being used as money?" Qin Guang really couldn't explain it to him, so he acted like a rascal. Fine. Just take it. Don't worry about it. Your son doesn't lack money now, not at all." This was the advantage of being a son. If he couldn't explain it clearly, he would act shamelessly. Anyway, Qin Guang had a look of, "What can you do to me? And, you have to take the money whether you want it or not." In the end, Qin Guoli still accepted the money. Qin Guang initially thought that his father would deal with the matter with the court, but he never expected that his father would suddenly show a complicated expression and shake his head. "Let's not return the money to the court for now. Let's just stay here." But Qin Guang didn't understand. Qin Guoli didn't explain to him. "Anyway, you won't understand even if I explain it. You don't have to worry about the family anymore. Although I don't know what you plan to do, you've already done enough. Really, it's enough. Zaijiang Yage is also not bad. Don't worry too much about those scandals in the celebrity circle. If you really love her, your dad will support you. But a man can't always rely on a woman. You've already grown up. Even if you haven't graduated from university, You should think about your career. Qin Guang roughly guessed what his father was hesitating about. Just as he thought before, there must be something fishy about the food poisoning at the hot pot restaurant. Dad, I've asked you many times before. You always said that those customers got food poisoning because you bought expired ingredients. This time you can't hide it from me anymore, right? Qin Guang frowned and finally asked this question. Qin Guoli was silent for a moment and nodded slightly. There's a problem. All the ingredients were personally picked by me. It's impossible for anything to go wrong. But this matter is really not simple. I've asked a lot of people in private, but they couldn't find out who was trying to frame me. By the way, don't blame Uncle Liao who made the judgment. He didn't hit me when I was down. If it wasn't for him, I might have to go to jail. He was also the one who suggested the bankruptcy. Anyway, I'll just wait for 10 or 20 years. As long as I don't have any assets under my name, no one can do anything to our family. Qin Guang nodded. He didn't object to Qin Guoli's idea, but he felt a headache. His father had been doing business in his hometown for many years and he was considered a friend. If he couldn't find any clues in the county, how could Lu Zhou investigate? Forget it, there will always be a way out. I'll find a suitable time to go back to the county and try. In the past, Qin Guang didn't believe in this so-called chicken soup for the elderly. But this time he really believed it. The next day when he heard that Professor Lu suddenly fell ill, he was completely dumbfounded. Although he had always liked to look for Tang Ying whenever he needed help, it was more because he and Tang Ying were of the same age. Their relationship was not the same as that of ordinary family members of patients and doctors. They could be considered as sincere friends. However, Qin Guang and Professor Lu still met from time to time. Even though this old professor had a lot of patients under his name, and he wasn't as friendly as Tang Ying, the old man's medical skills were not compromised. He was always able to hit the nail on the head. This included the treatment plan for Feng Rong. Even though Tang Ying was the one who proposed it, the final decision was always made by Professor Lu. The old man wasn't the person in charge of the treatment group, but he was also responsible. But man proposes, God disposes. Just as the operation was about to begin, the original chief surgeon unexpectedly fell ill. Chapter 273. Sitting in Tang Ying's office, Qin Guang didn't smoke. Otherwise he would have gone to a corner and smoked like a smoker. Tang Ying was busy outside. Professor Lu's sudden illness didn't only affect Feng Rong's surgery, but several other high-ranking patients were also transferred to Tang Ying's name. During her time as Professor Lu's assistant in Feng Rong's treatment group, Tang Ying had completely proven her ability. When Professor Lu first fell ill, he ordered all his patients to be transferred to Tang Ying. He wouldn't be able to trust anyone else. The old man was seriously ill, and it seemed like he wouldn't recover anytime soon. Tang Ying was also very busy. She finally talked to all of the new patients and read through all of their medical records. She finally had time to go to Qin Guang's office. As soon as she saw the bitter expression on his face, Tang Ying glared at him angrily. Ever since the news of Professor Lu's illness came out last night, Tang Ying hadn't had a good rest. She was so busy that she wanted to curse. However, when she saw this guy, she suddenly felt a lot better. Are you done? My mom's surgery tomorrow. Qin Guang could tell that Tang Ying was in a hurry. Even though he knew that the hospital would definitely have a solution, he couldn't rest until he asked her about it. Tang Ying threw a large stack of documents on the desk and turned to look at Qin Guang. Okay, I know you don't trust me. But this time, whether you trust me or not, you can only rely on me. As a doctor, I can't promise the patient's family. Even if it's you, I can only talk to you for a while. I'm really confident. Are you willing to trust me? The doctor at the next desk coughed violently as if he was trying to warn Tang Ying. If it were any other patient's family, they wouldn't have dared to say something like this before the surgery was even done. If something went wrong, it would definitely become a medical dispute. The doctor coughed violently. Qin Guang and Tang Ying understood what he meant. He was being kind, but they ignored him. Seeing that he was being snubbed, the man snorted and walked out. Before he left, he said sarcastically, "It's good for young people to be confident, but don't cause trouble for the hospital. I'm sorry to have made things difficult for you." Qin Guang sighed. Tang Ying looked around. Seeing that there were only the two of them in the office, she walked up and stared into Qin Guang's eyes. "I told you trust me. I'm not trying to comfort you, but I'm really confident. Of course, I wouldn't say this if it was another patient, but your mother is a perfect match with the kidney. As long as I don't cut off the liver as the kidney during the surgery, she will be fine. Thank you. At a time like this, Qin Guang didn't know what to say. He was truly ashamed of Tang Ying's kindness. Tang Ying blinked. Look at you. We're friends, aren't we? I have some information here. They are the records of my previous surgeries. You can take a good look at them. I'm not bragging to you, but the degree of finesse in my surgeries is not much worse than the fancy work you did yesterday when you sharpened your pencils for me. You just need to worship me crazily after reading it. I'm not going to chat with you anymore. I'm going back to work. After saying that, Tang Ying twisted her slender waist and took out another medical record. She walked to the door of the office and called a nurse over. Sometimes, Qin Guang really admired these doctors, especially Tang Ying, who was in charge of many patients in the inpatient department. He couldn't understand how these doctors' brains worked. How could they know so many patients' conditions like the back of their hands? How could they come up with a solution just like that? Today, Qin Guang returned to school to take his final exam. He didn't want to participate at first, but he accidentally blurted it out in front of his mother, so he was forced to go back. He didn't expect to come back today. He didn't have time to study for this class and he skipped a lot of classes. He didn't even finish half of the papers before they were collected. It seemed that he couldn't escape the fate of failing the exam this time. Qin Guang rested his chin on his hand and turned to look at Lin Jingwei and the others, who were checking their answers. He didn't want to talk to them at all. When he came back last night, these three grandsons had already lined up the names of the restaurants he was going to treat them to, from the east to the west, from now until graduation. It was as if they wouldn't stop until the rich were poor. The dormitory even gave Qin Guang a nickname in private. The man who made 200 million in one night. No matter how he heard it, it didn't sound right. The surgery was tomorrow morning, so he didn't plan to go back to the dormitory tonight. He wanted to stay in a hotel outside the hospital. Just as he was about to get up and leave the classroom, Lin Jingwei and the others suddenly came up to him. The only people who knew that Qin Guang's mother was going to have surgery tomorrow were the three grandsons, Sun Xiaoxuan and Gao Ya. They were all here. Everyone knew that Qin Guang was a little absent-minded at this time, so they didn't say much and just gave their blessings. Qin Guang only said thank you for everyone's blessings. He didn't say anything else and prepared to go to the parking lot. The more critical the last moment, the more his heart couldn't calm down. The blessings from others could at most comfort him mentally. Qin Guang didn't even have the mood to let Lin Jingwei and the others accompany him. Lin Jingwei and the others wanted to follow, but Qin Guang refused. There was no need for that. Not many people in the hospital could condense telekinesis to protect the surgery and make it go smoothly. Everything should be left to the illusory fate. Since he had touched the bell of fate for his mother's illness, everything would go smoothly in the end, right? As he walked downstairs, Qin Guang comforted himself in his heart. Qin Guang, wait. Suddenly, Sun Xiaoxuan's voice came from behind him. Qin Guang turned around and saw her running down the stairs alone. Before Qin Guang could say anything, Sun Xiaoxuan grabbed his hand and pulled him forward. I heard from Lin Jingwei that you plan to stay outside the hospital tonight? Qin Guang nodded. The surgery is at 9 a.m. tomorrow, so I might have to get up at 6 or 7 a.m. to work. I'm afraid I won't be able to get there in time if I go from school. Although I don't know if I can help, I want to go with you, okay? Although she sounded like she was asking for his permission, Sun Xiaoxuan was actually squeezing her hand tightly. The conversation she had with Gao Ye 2 nights ago had given her a lot of courage. Today she finally put it into practice. Qin Guang didn't understand what Sun Xiaoxuan meant. I'm the class monitor of the environmental sciences. I have the responsibility and obligation to care about the physical and mental health of my classmates. I can't let you handle such a big thing alone. You have to learn how to find someone to share your burden. Sun Xiaoxuan suddenly shouted at the top of her lungs in the stairwell. Passers-by looked at her with puzzled eyes, which made her blush. However, she stared at Qin Guang without blinking. Okay. In the end, Qin Guang gave in to her persistence and agreed to go to the hospital with her. He was indeed convinced by her identity as the class monitor. Sun Xiaoxuan did help a lot. The preparation before the surgery was more complicated than expected. Qin Guang and Qin Guoli were both busy in the hospital. Sun Xiaoxuan took the initiative to help buy food and help Feng Rong with towels. These were simple but tedious tasks. When Qin Guang and Qin Guoli were too busy, she could sit by Feng Rong's bed and take care of her at all times. Feng Rong's mental state wasn't very good because she had used the immune suppressant in advance. She was already in a daze and was about to fall asleep. When she opened her eyes, she vaguely saw a rather obedient girl sitting in front of her. She asked weakly, "Is this little Guang's girlfriend?" Sun Xiaoxuan, who was sitting by the bed, blushed and said in a voice even lower than Feng Rong's, "Yes." When she finished, she turned to look at Feng Rong, but she was already asleep. Sun Xiaoxuan playfully stuck out her tongue. She didn't know if Auntie Feng heard her. She felt a little sweet and a little nervous. Chapter 274. When they finally finished, it was already 11 o'clock at night. The treatment group's work wasn't finished yet, but it was no longer something that Qin Guang could meddle in. Although Qin Guang didn't want to leave, Qin Guoli still pushed Qin Guang and Sun Xiaoxuan out. "Young people are still growing, so I don't need your help here. Go and rest early. Qin Guang, you have to get up early tomorrow morning," Qin Guoli said as he pushed them away. Looking at his dad's weird expression, Qin Guang knew that he had something to hide. But Qin Guoli didn't give him a chance to defend himself. He quickly closed the door of the ward, leaving the two of them in the empty hospital corridor. Qin Guang awkwardly glanced at Sun Xiaoxuan. Just when he wanted to apologize, he saw the girl lowering her head with her face blushing. She was looking at the floor with a bashful expression. "Hey, it's not as simple as you think. I lied to my dad. I was Jiang Yage's mistress. Now that he has this kind of misunderstanding, doesn't it mean that I haven't eaten a single piece of meat, and in my dad's heart, I've become a two-timer? What the f***ck? What kind of injustice is this? Besides, Dad, don't you feel ashamed? You raised a son like Qin Shimi, don't you feel ashamed? You just pushed me out in such a hurry?" Qin Guang felt that his whole body was about to collapse. He walked out of the hospital with Sun Xiaoxuan. Not long after, his phone rang. He picked it up and saw that it was from his dad. Based on the principle of prevention, Qin Guang quietly turned his phone away when he read the message, so that Sun Xiaoxuan wouldn't see it. "This little girl is not bad. She's living a good life. Cherish her. You can make your own judgment on your own. But in my humble opinion, although a glamorous life is good, it's not as good as a simple life of cooking. A person's life is long. Finding someone suitable for living a stable life is a long-term solution." It was obvious that Sun Xiaoxuan's appearance today, her wholeheartedly helping out, and her gentle appearance of the daughter of a Jiangnan river village had easily captured Qin Guoli's heart of fairness. However, in Qin Guoli's heart, Qin Guang had indeed received a lot of benefits from Jiang Yage, so he couldn't say anything too harsh. He simply expressed his stance and hoped that Qin Guang could handle the relationship on his own. He subtly pointed out that perhaps the celebrity was just playing with him. Qin Guang was really confused, but he couldn't explain it. "What's wrong with you?" Sun Xiaoxuan asked in a low voice. Under the cover of the night, her face was also very red. If they were just classmates, why would a girl accompany another boy to take care of his sick mother in the hospital in the middle of the night? From the moment she decided to come here, Sun Xiaoxuan had already made up her mind to purposely leave such a misunderstanding for Qin Guang's parents. Although she was always timid like a little girl in front of Qin Guang, as the class monitor for more than 3 years, she handled the class affairs in an orderly manner. She was very scheming. It's nothing. It's getting late and I forgot to book a room at the hotel. The hotels near the hospital are very popular, so I don't want to run out of places to stay." About half an hour later, Qin Guang couldn't help but want to sew up his mouth. The two of them went to 7 or 8 seemingly good hotels near the hospital one after another, and all of them were unexpectedly full. However, some small hotels in the alleys were very enthusiastic and came up to them, saying that they still had vacant rooms. However, when Qin Guang and Sun Xiaoxuan saw the moral character of these small hotels and the gloomy atmosphere in the alleys, they were somewhat deterred. The two of them mustered up their courage and barged into one of the hotels. The heavily made-up proprietress enthusiastically pulled the two of them up to the second floor. The proprietress pushed Qin Guang up with her overly large breasts, while Qin Guang strenuously protected Sun Xiaoxuan. The stairs to the second floor were so narrow that it seemed like a mouse had built it. I'm not bragging, but my red apricot hotel is the thumbs up in this entire street. As the proprietress spoke, she forcefully lifted the wooden door with her hands. Finally, the key didn't break in the lock. A pile of cement or ash fell out of the door frame. The proprietress thought it was a facial mask and wiped it on her face with a smile. Less than 10 seconds after entering the door, Qin Guang was shaken back by the thick sour smell of the small hotel's bedding. He didn't care, but how could he let a delicate little girl like Sun Xiaoxuan stay in a place like this? Besides, Qin Guang planned to get 2 rooms so that he could sleep peacefully until tomorrow morning. But Sun Xiaoxuan couldn't. This place wasn't safe. Just by looking at the thin wooden door and the most old-fashioned oval lock, this place was uninhabitable. Hey, don't go. We've already opened the door for you. You can't go. The 2 of them fled in panic under the pursuit of the proprietress. It wasn't easy for them to escape from the claws of the proprietress. When they came back to their senses, they discovered that they were holding each other's hands and were gasping for breath from running. Looking at each other's battered and exhausted appearance, the 2 of them pointed at each other and burst into laughter. After searching for another 20 minutes, they finally found a decent-looking business hotel. However, there was a new problem. It said that there was only a standard room with 2 single beds. Then Qin Guang would have to sleep in the same room as Sun Xiaoxuan. Although Qin Guang felt that this wasn't right, he had no other choice. It was almost 12:30 p.m. Sun Xiaoxuan seemed to be very sleepy due to her regular biological clock. She couldn't even keep her eyes open. Hearing that there was only 1 room, she didn't seem to care. She only said, "I'm fine. I'm sleepy. I want to sleep." Then she didn't move again. She looked like her brain had completely shut down. At first, the hotel manager didn't want to let Qin Guang and Sun Xiaoxuan stay. After all, there was only 1 room and they were both young. It wasn't until Qin Guang took out his UBS black gold card that the hotel manager, who knew a little bit about business, stopped pestering them about whether they were husband and wife and let them go. The UBS card was relatively rare. Although it wasn't the highest level card worth 10 billion gold, it wasn't something that ordinary people could get their hands on. Because it was directly linked to the UBS, it was even rarer than the American Express Centurion Black Card that was represented by financial institutions such as ICBC and China Merchants Bank. Qin Guang's 180 million in cash was like a huge fortune in the eyes of ordinary people. However, in front of a huge banking institution like the UBS, it was indeed not enough. The fact that he was able to get this card so easily was actually a great deal of face for Lu Fei and Uncle Cheng. Inviting the person in charge of the UBS Asia-Pacific region was so smooth. Of course, if Qin Guang wasn't afraid of trouble with his current personal assets, he could completely meet the standards of the ICBC and China Merchants Bank to apply for a Centurion card. However, the UBS card was quite useful. Now it seemed that the black card's effect was basically up to standard, so he didn't bother with it. Qin Guang and Sun Xiaoxuan followed the enthusiastic manager upstairs in the elevator. During the elevator, Sun Xiaoxuan leaned against the elevator. In just a few seconds, she actually looked like she was about to fall asleep. Qin Guang held Sun Xiaoxuan's hand to prevent her from slipping to the ground. He also felt ashamed. She had helped him run up and down and it was quite tiring. Also, because of his own mistake, it took them until now to find the hotel. How tired was this poor little girl? Well, when they get to the room, there were 2 beds anyway. She would sleep on one and he would sleep on the other. Soon she would fall asleep. Maybe there wouldn't be any problems, right? Qin Guang didn't notice that Sun Xiaoxuan quietly opened her eyes slightly. The eyes that penetrated through the gaps didn't look like she was about to fall asleep, but were clearly shining. Chapter 275. F***CK. Manager, are you kidding me? Where's the standard room with 2 single beds? Why is there a double bed here? As soon as he inserted the room card, the lights in the room turned on. Qin Guang was dumbfounded. The manager, who was about to go downstairs, was called back by Qin Guang. Qin Guang pointed at the big bed in the room and felt terrible. At this time, Sun Xiaoxuan had already staggered into the bathroom. It seemed that she was getting ready to wash up. The manager was also a little confused. He scratched his head. Mr. Qin, I'm really sorry. I'm not usually the receptionist. The staff at the front desk are more familiar with the system. I'm a little out of practice. I must have seen wrongly, but we really only have one room in the hotel. How about you make do with it tonight? Qin Guang wanted to strangle Sun Xiaoxuan to death. The bed was large enough for him and Sun Xiaoxuan to sleep on two sides, but Qin Guang wanted to strangle Sun Xiaoxuan to death. However, one bed and two beds were completely different. If he had known that the standard room was a double bed, he would never have come up like this. The manager smiled apologetically. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. On the other side, Sun Xiaoxuan didn't seem to notice what Qin Guang and the manager were talking about. She had already closed the bathroom door in a daze. From the sound, it seemed that she had turned on the water heater and was ready to take a shower. Qin Guang felt a headache coming on. He looked at the manager helplessly. He really couldn't blame him. In fact, the manager had already helped him a lot today. Strictly speaking, he and Sun Xiaoxuan weren't husband and wife, so the manager could have refused to stay. He heard that the hotel industry had recently been very strict in some aspects. From time to time there would be a sweep. The manager had taken a risk by letting people in. Forget it. That's it. Sorry to trouble you, manager. Qin Guang shook his head helplessly and let the manager go. After locking the door, Qin Guang sat on the big bed with a pained expression. In the bathroom, Sun Xiaoxuan desperately splashed cold water on her face. Half of her drowsy look was fake and the other half was real. She usually slept at 10:30 a.m., but she was still awake today because of this special situation. Before this, she didn't expect that she would stay in the same room as Qin Guang. She was caught off guard and hadn't completely recovered from the moment she went upstairs from the lobby of the hotel. Her mind was in a mess. She seemed to be expecting something but also afraid of something. She was completely confused, so she simply pretended to be sleepy and didn't care about anything else. She didn't want to embarrass herself and didn't want Qin Guang to ask her for advice. She was worried that if Qin Guang really asked her what she should do, would she agree immediately? Or should he reluctantly refuse? If I agreed immediately, would he think that I was being too casual? If she rejected him, wouldn't it seem like she didn't trust him? What a headache. So I'll pretend to be asleep. It wasn't until he locked himself in the bathroom and washed his face with cold water to refresh himself that Sun Xiaoxuan could finally think about this matter a little more clearly. There was a voice in his head that sounded like a little devil. Sun Xiaoxuan, this is the best opportunity you've been waiting for. With Qin Guang's personality, if you really gave your body to him today, he wouldn't be a heartless man. But another angel-like voice said, Sun Xiaoxuan, you can't do this. You haven't even fallen in love with him yet. How can you do such a crazy thing? This is irresponsible to yourself, and it is also irresponsible to Qin Guang. The devil spoke again. As long as there is true love, how can there be such a thing as irresponsibility? Does every first love in this world hold hands and walk to the end? Isn't being crazy about love something that young people like you should do the most? Don't worry about the future. God knows what the future will be like. Just hold on to the present tightly. If you don't hold the present tightly, how can you win the future? There are so many competitors, how can you compete with them? The angel-like voice retorted, if you hold the present tightly, you will lose the future. Qin Guang had just made a fortune and you took the initiative to throw yourself into his arms. What will he think of you? He will think of you as a woman who doesn't have any self-respect for money. Even if this is your first time, once this image is formed in his mind, you will never be able to get his true love in this life. You can only progress step by step. She fiercely splashed cold water on her face again. The cold water droplets slid down her delicate cheeks. Sun Xiaoxuan shook her head fiercely and gradually became clear-headed. She was frightened by the words of the angel in her heart. She wasn't afraid of anything, but she was afraid that Qin Guang would misunderstand her. The halo formed by the 200 million cash on Qin Guang's body was too dazzling. As a girl from an ordinary family, it was impossible for her to turn a blind eye to it. The more she didn't care about money, the more she couldn't ignore the potential damage that money could cause to a relationship. Thinking of this, her unusually excited and uncontrollable mood gradually calmed down. She took off her clothes and planned to take a shower first before thinking about it. Even if she couldn't make up her mind, she couldn't stay in the bathroom until tomorrow morning, right? She applied the shower gel on her body and rubbed it in front of the mirror. Looking at her relatively petite but curvaceous figure in the mirror, Sun Xiaoxuan suddenly froze. Wait, I seem to have made a mistake. It seems like this kind of thing shouldn't be something that a girl like me should think about. I'm a girl sleeping in the same bed with him. If he really wants to do something, then wouldn't it just happen? Of course, with Qin Guang's personality, especially with Auntie Feng's big surgery tomorrow, Qin Guang most likely wouldn't have that kind of thought. The probability of that happening was less than 1%, but it was at least 1%. In other words, even if nothing happened, even if I just lay in the same bed with him for a whole night, it would still mean that our relationship had improved by leaps and bounds. I don't need to think about anything or hesitate at all. I'll just take a shower and lie on the bed naturally. Although I don't have a hot body like that sister in the leather jacket, and maybe I'm not as charming as one when I'm not bad, right? Sun Xiaoxuan clenched his fists tightly as he looked at his exquisite face in the mirror, as well as his slim waist that made Yiye envious. He was also holding up his chest, which was unique to young girls. I can't feel inferior, I'm really very charming. All I have to do is to act as natural as possible later. Sun Xiaoxuan took a shower and used the hairdryer to dry her hair. 20 minutes had passed and it was almost 1 o'clock in the morning. She thought about it, and in the end she didn't wear the bathrobe provided by the hotel. Instead, she put on her pants and only wore a thin t-shirt. She then wrapped her white bra in her jacket and walked out of the bathroom with her neck shrunk. Chapter 276. Sun Xiaoxuan turned his head and saw Qin Guang sitting on the double bed with a dull look on his face. Sun Xiaoxuan didn't know whether he was disappointed or secretly laughing. I knew this guy would scare me silly. In other words, if Qin Guang was a perverted beast like Pan Jiang instead of him being like this, I wouldn't have fallen in love with him at all, would I? I'll leave it to God. Taking a deep breath, Sun Xiaoxuan forced a seemingly natural smile on his face. Don't let your imagination run wild. There's only one room in the hotel and it can't be helped. If you keep looking around like this, you won't be able to sleep until tomorrow morning. Besides, I didn't say anything. You're a boy, so why are you embarrassed? Qin Guang raised his head and was indeed embarrassed. I didn't expect it to be a double bed. It's all my fault that I didn't think of using my phone to book a room earlier. If it were another time, he would have to share a room with another girl and even sleep on the same bed. It would be strange if he didn't get excited. But at this moment, a small part of his mind was troubled by the current situation, and the other part was thinking about the scene of his mother being pushed into the operating room the next morning. He didn't have the mood to think about those trivial thoughts at this time. He was even sure that it would be a sleepless night for Sun Xiaoxuan, regardless of whether he could sleep or not. Qin Guang didn't expect to fall asleep at all. At most, he would just lie on the bed and rest for a few hours. Kidney transplant surgery usually took 4 hours. At 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, the success of the surgery could be determined. At this point, Qin Guang could only choose to believe that the kidney source brought by the power of destiny from the Holy Grail was so perfect, and he could only believe that Tang Ying, the genius doctor from Moreland's Medical College, wouldn't let him down. His mind was thinking about many things, so he didn't think very fast when talking to Sun Xiaoxuan. He didn't even notice the strange tremble in Sun Xiaoxuan's voice. On the other side, Sun Xiaoxuan pretended to be calm. He walked to the side of the bed by the window, put his coat next to the pillow, pulled off the quilt and crawled under it. He stuck his head out. It's okay. Isn't this bed pretty big? There are also 2 quilts. We'll cover each other. You can't sleep in the middle of the night and snatch my quilt, right? You don't have the habit of snatching blankets, do you? Qin Guang shook his head. No. Sun Xiaoxuan smiled mischievously. It's good. I'm relieved. Then she hid under the quilt, took off her trousers and threw them beside the pillow. Qin Guang, following Sun Xiaoxuan's movement, her originally bundled coat was knocked loose, revealing her white bra inside. Qin Guang was staring blankly at her as she took off her pants. When he saw her bra, he was even more dumbfounded. You. Qin Guang couldn't hold it in any longer. Sun Xiaoxuan, on the other hand, stuck his head out of the cup with a red face and glared at him. Pervert. Qin Guang continued. Hurry up and take a shower and go to sleep. I've set the alarm clock. I have to wake up at 6 tomorrow morning. I can only sleep for 5 hours. I'll wrap myself up in the quilt. I won't let you take advantage of me. Then she pushed her clothes under the pillow and with a shy look she really rolled left and right in the quilt, turning herself into a silkworm chrysalis. When Qin Guang went to the bathroom to take a shower with a bitter smile, Sun Xiaoxuan stared at the ceiling with a red face. She suddenly realized that she seemed to have overdone it. Originally she wanted to give him a chance to accidentally crawl under her quilt. Now that she was wrapped up like a silkworm cocoon, how could he still have a chance? What should I do now? Should I shake the cup open on purpose? But will this make him think that I'm deliberately seducing him? I'm only wearing my underwear now. He'll take advantage of me in an instant. So painful, so conflicted. Roughly 10 minutes later, Qin Guang didn't even wash his hair since Qin Guang was much faster in washing himself. He also learned from Sun Xiaoxuan. He first put on his clothes and lay down on the other bed. He turned his head and saw Sun Xiaoxuan next to him looking at him with a red face and a nervous expression. Qin Guang's worry about the operation finally relaxed a little. He also threw out his pants from under the quilt, took off his clothes and pretended to cover his shoulders with his hands. Pervert. Don't look. Pfft. Sun Xiaoxuan laughed foolishly. I won't look at you. There's nothing to look at. I've already seen you when you were swimming. Okay, go to sleep. You were almost asleep just now. Why are you awake now? After joking with Sun Xiaoxuan, Qin Guang reminded her to go to sleep. After all, girls were not like men. Staying up late had a greater impact on their bodies. Qin Guang turned off the light but didn't close the window. The bright moonlight outside shone through the window, so the room wasn't very dark. Qin Guang lay on the bed and couldn't close his eyes. He stared blankly at the shadow of the chandelier on the ceiling, as if he could see the shadow moving with the moon. The night was as cold as water and his mind was empty. After waiting for about 10 minutes, he suddenly heard Sun Xiaoxuan's voice. Why aren't you sleeping yet? The voice was close at hand. Qin Guang turned his head and found that Sun Xiaoxuan, who had transformed into a silkworm cocoon, was leaning sideways. Her head was less than a foot away from him, and she was staring at him with a pair of big eyes. Under the moonlight, Sun Xiaoxuan's eyes, which were bigger than ordinary people's, were particularly bright. I can't sleep. Why? I'm scared. I've never been so scared before. Auntie will be fine. You've worked so hard. If God really has feelings, he will also be moved by you. Sun Xiaoxuan's voice sounded very gentle. At this moment, all the thoughts she had just had already disappeared. She had never seen Qin Guang in such a weak state until today. Qin Guang nodded heavily. Yes, it will be fine. If God really dares to treat me like this, I will tear down the sky when I become an immortal in the future. Sun Xiaoxuan thought he was joking. I will tear it down with you. Hey, if you want to tear it down with me, you have to sleep well first and take care of your body. You're going to have dark circles under your eyes. But that won't look good. No. Mr. Class Rep still looks good with smoky makeup. Qin Guang grinned. After chatting with Sun Xiaoxuan for a while, he felt a lot better. At this time, there was a sudden noise coming from the corridor outside. It seemed that a lot of people had suddenly come. Qin Guang knitted his brows. He couldn't be that unlucky, right? This situation often happens on TV. Motherf ***, don't joke around. I'm in a bad mood right now. What he feared had come true. After a while, there was a sudden knocking on the door. It was very urgent and angry. Open the door. Crack down on prostitution. That you're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.